This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Everyone needs to unload to someone who's unbiased and who isn't judging. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny and unload the stress.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to PSI Love You XOXO episode 77. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the birthday boy, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
What's up, Greg? I got cake.
I know it's not a cheesecake. I'm sorry. All right, I didn't send you the best possible cake in the world. All right.
I'm still very excited about it. We're in an interesting place because of 4th of July weekend. We're recording this on Friday, which means our schedules are all jumbled. And so, I didn't have enough time between KFGD and now to actually eat a legit lunch. And so you're going to see me eating this cake throughout the show.
Lunch on the cake. Have some fun.
I'm going to get hungry.
What kind of cake is it?
It's a chocolate cake that had a strawberry. I ate the strawberry on Games Daily, but it also has frosting with chocolate chips on it that I'm very excited about. It's not a cheesecake, but
so then
is cheesecake your go-to?
Is cheesecake your go-to birthday cake?
Cheesecake is my favorite dessert, period. And the only reason I brought it up earlier in the day was because Kevin was sent a cheesecake for my birthday, and so I'm happy with what I have. I'm happy with what I have.
Everybody.
I'm happy with what I
have.
No
information other than get cakes for Blessing, for Tim for their birthdays, and then Kevin because he was on the Games Daily. I did the best I could, and now I got to hear about it the rest of my life. You know, Janet.
But you
try to do nice things for nice people, and this is what happens.
You did a phenomenal job.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, rounding out the trio. She's the game playing roller skating. It's Janet Garcia. Hello, Janet.
Hey, what's up?
For future reference, what's your favorite cake?
Ooh, my favorite cake? Oh, gosh. I'm not sure. I usually go with just, I don't know, something good from a bougie or bakery is usually what my family ends up getting. We like this chain that's in LA and other places called Tous les Jours. And that's usually where we get our birthday cakes. But if I don't know the area, a nothing bundt cake hits. That's a very solid cake. Pretty much any, the red velvet cake is probably one of my go-tos if I'm doing that. Which is also a really good cake. So that's another one I've done for my birthday a couple times. I do like cheesecake, but it's just, you can't put candles in the cheesecake. So
yeah,
that's why I don't do that.
That's why people would normally say, it's not a birthday cake and you shouldn't.
No, it's not a birthday cake. You can't, I mean, Blessing, have you put candles into a cheesecake?
No, I've never put candles to a cheesecake.
Okay, thank God.
I mean,
interesting,
but Kevin Coelho did get a cheesecake for
it's not
my
his birthday. He had a cake because he's Kevin. You can't leave Kevin out. You know what I mean? He's an annoying little brother.
But if it wasn't my birthday, he wouldn't have gotten the cake. And so technically, that is a birthday cake that he got from Greg Miller, who sent.
I mean, it's more of an honorarium. You know what I mean? It's one of the perks of Kinda Funny. I feel like if you're gonna be,
we could put candles on a cheese. There's nothing stopping us from putting candles on a cheesecake.
But you haven't because you know it's wrong.
So let that court record. And I'll remind you, Blessing, you're under oath. Mm-hmm. For your normal birthdays back home, would anybody give you? Was your birthday cake a cheesecake?
For my so most of the time I didn't really celebrate my birthday just because I'm not a big birthday celebrator. Mm-hmm. But for the times we would do a birthday party, one of my older sisters, really likes making these cookie cakes. That would basically be these baked chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, one big cookie in a pan. Cookie.
Yeah, one big cookie in a pan. And that would usually be the standard. I love those as well. Those were really amazing, actually.
How do you guys feel about birthday pie?
No,
that's too far.
Wow,
that's too far.
Wow, fuck y'all.
I
feel like pie's an everyday dessert. You could have that. That's just I'm going to a dinner party. I'll bring a pie. That doesn't need to be a cake. It's somebody's birthday. There's an event here. We're celebrating something.
Well, I like to celebrate my birthday with apple pie. So,
hey man, first off, I'm not trying to stop you. Celebrate your birthday however you want to.
I recently from this restaurant. I'm gonna look it up on DoorDash. I DoorDashed an apple pie milkshake.
Okay,
it's basically a milkshake with an apple pie mixed in there.
Don't tell Kevin about that. It'll kill him.
I didn't. Does he love it or does he hate it? What's Kevin's thing with
Kevin wouldn't love that. He said, I mean,
when
we went to Portillo's, one of the things he still talks about is the chocolate cake shake. So yeah.
Yeah, and I had it, and I didn't know what I expected, but drank it and it tasted just like apple pie, and it was very satisfying.
Sure.
Apple pie is really good. Pie in general, really good.
Oh yeah, pie's great,
but not for birthday.
Yeah. See, and I'm so Midwest that I like a good sheet cake from the bakery. You know, from the bakery of like the Jewel Osco, from the supermarket. You know what I mean? You go there and it's like just been sitting there. Like you get that thing, you cut into it, and you know exactly how it's going to taste, but it's a good cake. All right.
The name of the place was Sherry's Cafe and Pies. And I got the deep dish Washington apple sherry pie shake. And it was next level. It was amazing. And so if you're looking for a pie shake, go to Sherry's in San Francisco.
Okay. Well, if you're looking for a PlayStation podcast, you found one. This is PS I Love You XOXO. Each and every Tuesday, Blessing, myself, and Janet come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, you can be part of the show over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Of course, over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do each and every episode. And of course, on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, you could be watching live as we record it a whole few days early because of 4th of July here, just like Matt Grover is, Stephen Coots is, and Indy Ronan are. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't do the show without your support, so consider patreon.com/kindafunnygames to get the show as timely as possible. But if you have no bucks to toss our way, it's no big deal. Of course, you can get each and every episode Tuesday, youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe. Each and every Tuesday, 6 a.m. Pacific time. Some housekeeping for you, of course. Not for you people watching live right now, but for everybody else on Tuesday, a new episode of the Kinda Funny Xcast went up over the weekend. For the first time in like 6 months, it feels like Gary, Mike, and Paris are all reunited. And I pop on to talk about the Backbone, an attachment I use pretty much solely for remote play with my PlayStation, but I get to come in and talk about it.
It was the first time they were together since May 22nd, Greg.
Outrageous.
I know.
You know what I mean? Outrageous.
They're all so busy.
That's true. Not Mike. You should be busy like our Patreon producers. Huh?
None of us would leave the show like that, right?
No, I mean, not without a good reason. You know what I mean? None of us would
for a
leave.
long extended period, like for over a month.
But like, what was the reason? You know, like, I mean,
Gary was watching soccer. I will give it to Paris because Paris was out like doing cool shit, you know. But Gary,
I hosted E3 and didn't miss one Kind of Funny reaction. All right, I hosted.
I mean, you missed a PS Love You here and there, but you know, it's not like you're gone for like a month. You know,
I would never be on for a consistent amount of time without coming in and baking in a perfect replacement in Janet Garcia. All right, that's exactly. Don't worry about it. I planned for it. That's the thing. That's the only thing too.
Period, right?
Think about these X-bots over there. None of them planned for not being together. It's literally Gary says, I'm not coming. And Mike goes, oh, shit, who can I get on the show? You know what I mean? Look at us. We thought ahead. Months ahead.
I don't think we can say the word X-bot. I think that, I don't know. I feel like it's a harsh term. They just like Xbox.
I've been saying it for years. They love it.
Are we allowed to say that?
They're all over there like,
PlayStation fans.
I love achievements.
You know what's weird? There's no Nintendo thing for that.
Yeah, you're just a
Nintendo
fanboy.
I think they just have the market can't.
Right, but like, that's not anything. Like, that's a term that already
existed.
But I
feel like Nintendo fanboys, like, that thing has been around since obviously we were children with that and like Sega kids. Because there were Sega kids and Nintendo fanboys. Now there's Sony ponies, Xbots.
Nintendo just doesn't work with anyone.
PC fucking losers. You know what I mean?
Nintendo bendos. Like, what are we gonna do there? You know?
See, the Nintendo fanboy doesn't work as well because people call themselves Nintendo fan. I've called myself a Nintendo fanboy before.
Mm-hmm.
I've never called myself a Sony pony.
I think Nintendo fans, as I said, as a Nintendo fan, are the only ones that don't have like that same kind of shame. It's like, yeah, you know, this is what it is. This is what it is.
This is who I am.
I know who I am.
Over in the chat, I like this. Matt Grover says Ninfrendo.
That's really nice.
That sounds nice. That sounds like.
Well, yeah. I mean, whatever. Who cares about what somebody on the internet calls you? Come on.
I want to be a Ninfrendo.
Would you like to be a Patreon producer? You can go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, just like the following people, to get your name read in the producers. These are new people for July. So I'm going to butcher some names. It's Marcus, then in parentheses, Shitatic, and then Strandifer. So Marcus, Shitatic, Strandifer, Tyler Ross, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, and Elliot. Janet, you remember the movie E.T., by the way?
Yes. I mean, well, I never watched it.
Thank you. That's it. No. That's all we wanted on the record. We just want to know if you knew about the movie E.T., if you thought that was an actual movie. Thank you to our sponsors, Purple Mattress and Fitbod. I'll tell you about those later. I think actually Tim does this week, but it doesn't matter. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. Lady, gentlemen, it's finally happened. PlayStation has struck back. Blessing 4 months now. we've been doing this show. And there was one that stood out to me when Xbox, maybe it was when they had just bought Bethesda, maybe it was when they did the other crazy ass decisions they were doing of picking people up, making big moves for gamers and stuff. Someone wrote in, and the question was, when will PlayStation get a big W? You remember this, Blessing? You remember this question?
I do remember this, yeah.
And it's something that's been on my mind for a while, because of course the question itself incredibly flawed. Let's not act like PlayStation isn't winning all the time. PlayStation 5 destroying the fact that you just got Ratchet and Clank, you got Returnal, you got Miles Morales. You know, everything's really well for PlayStation. But the problem is PlayStation hasn't had that big dog bravado energy in quite some time, right? I feel like they've been making the moves that you consistently expect them to do, and you expect that to be awesome. But in the meantime, Xbox is snapping up industry headlines. Am I wrong, Janet Garcia? Do you see this happening?
Yeah, I definitely think that's been the vibe. And I think even just from like the things we've talked about on this show lately, it's been a lot of like theoretical speculation. You know, it's the reason that it's been so much like, you know, what would E3 have looked like? Should there be this PlayStation event? It's because there's not really a lot of big topics going on until really this past week, where the news just kept coming in over and over again. And it's like, okay, I think we're finally starting to pick up the pace. There's still that big question of, are we, you know, really going to get an event that's going to tie it all together and kind of, you know, have that final punch? But this definitely is a ramp up for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the thing. We've been starving for so long for concrete information. And it's funny, you know, last week, of course, PS I Love You XOXO went up on Tuesday, as it always did. And then, like, an hour later, PlayStation kind of opened up the floodgates on news. And so many people wrote in, not so many people, but enough people were like, oh, man, it sucks they screwed you. And I'm like, well, not really, because, you know, the show's Kind of Funny Games Daily is meant to be your topical news show, get into the nitty gritty. PlayStation's more for reflection, big topics, yada, yada, yada. But there was one salient comment that came back to me. Aside from all the people who are like, no, this happens to you all the time. I'm like, no, it just seems like it does. Check out, if it's happening to us all the time, why does Dornbush bitch about it? Why does McCaffrey bitch about it? Why do I bitch about it on Games Daily when a story breaks at 11:30? Every day in this industry, news happens at inconvenient times for the shows we're doing. However, getting away from all that, what I'm saying is it opened up, and then we get to be in this interesting spot where I feel like from Tuesday on, there's been so much PlayStation stuff that's happened that to do a Friday episode that we'll post on Monday, or I'm sorry, we'll post on Tuesday, Monday being a holiday, but I assure Tuesday something's going to happen. So we're just going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And then also, as we'll talk about, Imagine Blue Point gets announced on Tuesday. Imagine Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut gets announced on Tuesday. Some of that shit's happening somewhere. I'm sure of it. I know it's going to happen. You just know it's going to happen. So we're including Ellie in the thumbnail because I'm future proofing on this motherfucker. Anyways, it's all part of the same conversation, and we should get into it. All right. Because after this long drought, it feels like, of PlayStation beating their chest and be like, no, we are an amazing place to play and make games or whatever at. They have come out swinging this week, and PlayStation has struck back. So let's start with what Blessing called PlayStation is acquiring studios left and right. We will start with the one that, of course, broke Tuesday. Long overdue, in my opinion. PlayStation bought Housemarque. We'll start at the PlayStation blog, where Herman Hulst, of course, president of PlayStation Studios, said, "Today I'm thrilled to welcome a new member to the PlayStation Studios family. I've been a fan of Housemarque since the studio's early days when they introduced Super Stardust HD to PlayStation fans. Housemarque's recent release of Returnal proves the studio is one with incredible vision, capable of creating memorable new games that resonate with our community. This addition enhances the creative force of PlayStation Studios, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Housemarque." Housemarque's co-founder and managing director popped up in the same blog post, had this to say: "Today is a big day for Housemarque, and it has been over 26 years in the making. Our strong partnership with Sony Interactive Entertainment started with Super Stardust HD on the PS3, and since then we have made arcade-inspired games for all of the PlayStation platforms. We are so excited to finally join the PlayStation Studios family." And here's where I think they say the most important thing of this. "This gives our studio a clear future and a stable opportunity to continue delivering on gameplay-centric approaches while still experimenting with new methods of narrative delivery and pushing the boundaries of this modern art form." Of course, they go on. They say, talk about, what a big deal it is for them to have the oldest game studio in Finland and now be part of PlayStation. What does it mean for fans? Nothing. You're still getting great games, yada, yada, yada. And then a press release confirmed that day-to-day operations continue to be run by Housemarque's current management team in conjunction with PlayStation Studios. But the most important thing here is that part I did. "This gives our studio a clear future and stable opportunity to continue delivering on gameplay-centric approaches while still experimenting with new methods of narrative delivery and pushing the boundaries of this modern art form." Janet, Blessing, for me, this is the oldest question I feel finally put to bed, which was, when is PlayStation going to buy Housemarque? I remember on Beyond, PlayStation, Podcast Beyond, ever since Super Stardust HD, there's been that conversation of, oh man, when's Housemarque going to get bought? And we saw them never get bought. We saw them make Super Stardust, Dead Nation, partner with Ubisoft for Outland, right? And continue making games. But of course, infamously, August 21st, 2017, they penned the post, "Arcade is dead," where they wrote, "However, despite critical success in numerous awards, our games just haven't sold in significant numbers. While some of them have reached a massive audience due to free game offerings across various digital channels, this unfortunately doesn't help pay for development, which gets costly for high production quality. We are extremely grateful to our fans and partners who have enabled us to work on awesome games like Super Stardust HD and Outland. For your unfailing love and support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. But now it's time to move on to new genres. Lackluster sales of Nex Machina have left us thinking that it is time to bring our long-standing commitment to the arcade genre to an end. While the genre will always hold a special place in our hearts, the industry is moving forward toward multiplayer experiences with strong, robust communities, and it's time for Housemarque to move forward with the industry. Hence, Nex Machina and Matterfall will be the last of their kind coming out of our studio." That was a crazy announcement. They started talking about multiplayer. They started talking about not making the games Housemarque for, right? And then, of course, on January 23rd, 2020, a little more than 3 years later, they talked about the history, the 25 years of Housemarque, and then had this in there too. So now we are focused on delivering our most ambitious and biggest game to date, putting every other project on hold, including the development of Storm Divers. Storm Divers was the multiplayer community thing they were talking about, getting in there, Battle Royale, right? And of course, in coded words we didn't know at the time, the biggest game to date they were working on was Returnal. It is great that the whole company can come together to deliver this game, which will define the next evolution of Housemarque. We are very humbled to have amazing support from our partner, of course, PlayStation, over the past few years, and this support has continuously grown on a monthly basis. So much to talk about. And in terms of a PS I Love You, I feel like this is the most intrinsically tied PS I Love You ever, where we have this topic of the show, PlayStation Strikes Back, and I feel like a lot of the PlayStation updates are going to come up and bubble up into it as well. So we can go wherever we want with it. But sorry I talked forever. Blessing, let's go to you. Housemarque and PlayStation finally getting into bed officially with each other. Where does that leave you, and where are you days after the announcement?
Yeah, I think this makes complete sense. This makes almost too much sense, and is very reflective of decisions we've seen PlayStation make, where it falls in line with what we would have expected a while ago. Them acquiring Insomniac, for example, a little bit ago. That's a partnership between a studio and a publisher that's been around for a long time, and Insomniac had made games for PlayStation felt like forever, and they had flirted with other platforms. They'd made Sunset Overdrive, they'd done other things, but Insomniac we had identified with PlayStation. So coming off of Spider-Man and with the success of Spider-Man, made complete sense that for that game, as the best-selling PlayStation first-party game, or fastest-selling, or whatever the thing they said was the fastest-selling PlayStation first-party game, it made sense for PlayStation to be like, oh, we gotta put a ring on this. We gotta scoop this up. And Housemarque, it almost feels like Returnal was the test for the question of why hasn't PlayStation scooped them up yet. I think the answer probably would have been that Housemarque just wasn't making big enough games, or the games weren't seeing the financial return that PlayStation might be looking for a PlayStation first-party game, especially when we talk about new PlayStation. Maybe old PlayStation would have been down to scoop up a developer that was doing experimental things, making cool games for the platform. But 2021 PlayStation wants to see big return. They want to see big waves. They want to see a game that brings value to the platform. And Returnal, as the, I'll say, quote-unquote, leading big PS5 PlayStation Studios first-party game for the platform. I know you can make the argument for Miles Morales and Demon's Souls, etc. But, post-launch, new original IP, big game that people are talking about in a Game of the Year sense. This was, I think, the proof in the pudding for Housemarque, and the one that put them on the map for PlayStation Studios to be like, all right, we can't let these guys go. Especially when we want to talk about what is the future for Housemarque? What is there in terms of risk of letting Housemarque go by not acquiring them? We saw what happened with Supermassive, for example, where we got Until Dawn from them, and they didn't get a ring on it, and so now they're out there making other games for other platforms, more multi-platform, I should say.
Sure.
And that narrative could have been completely different if maybe PlayStation acquired them? Would we have Until Dawn 2 as a PlayStation exclusive? Would we have other kinds of games from Supermassive being made as PlayStation exclusives, or maybe even VR games? That could have been a potential possibility that I think was missed out on. Sure. This feels like PlayStation being like, yo, let's not miss out on this, and let's really double down. And Returnal is such a success. It is displaying the power of the PS5. It is showcasing what the DualSense can do and what 3D audio can do and what all the core tenets of this console can do in a way where also the game itself is fucking dope as fuck and is super phenomenal and super cool and super different and super unique and adds a lot to our portfolio as PlayStation Studios. And so with that, I think this makes complete sense, and I'm super excited about it because I want more from Housemarque in this way. I want more AAA Housemarque. I want more experimental Housemarque. I even want more Returnal. And I think, in terms of the let's put a ring on it thing, right? I think maybe this gives more leeway for Housemarque to even want to make Returnal DLC, not being tethered in that way and feeling like they have that return now or that comfortability now to
that
be like,
Returnal.
Okay, cool. That Returnal now, yeah.
You said return so many times. I was just like...
Yeah. But being in the place where it's like, cool, us making DLC for this game for PlayStation also fits into our bottom line as well because we are PlayStation. And so it makes sense for us to give support.
Cut, perhaps?
Returnal Director's Cut. I can see any sort of future support for Returnal now that they're in the PlayStation Studios portfolio. And so I think that makes complete sense.
The fact that they even made it, a PS5 exclusive, like I do think, Blessing, to your point, yeah, Returnal probably was a test. I'm sure if it flopped, maybe this wouldn't have gone through, though I'm not sure how, long that process takes, like from deciding they want to acquire versus when the paperwork gets signed versus when the announcement gets, put out there. It wouldn't surprise me if this was already in the works even before Returnal launched. But I think the fact that they had this as one of their few marquee PS5 exclusives, like this is showing that like very few games right now have that. Like it's this and Ratchet, like that's huge. So for this to be now a first party, now a studio they acquired, it just makes total sense. And I think this falls in line with a couple things we've seen from PlayStation, one of which being pretty much almost all their acquisitions are like, oh yeah, it's about time, or oh, I almost forgot they didn't have that studio already, that's pretty much every time they acquire someone, I'm like, yep, makes sense. And it's kind of almost a boring take at that point because it's just like, yeah, great studio, yay, more games from them. But I think it also speaks to what's great and what's potentially not so great about PlayStation, which is they play it safe and they win and they make good moves, but I think all those things come at the cost of other things, which I'm sure we're going to get into later of how willing they are to take risks and things like that. But yes, this is a smart, good move. You can't really look at this and be upset by it. Like it just makes sense for the company.
Yeah, the way to be upset about it would be if you're an Xbox fan that you're not getting these games, right? But then we're back to arguments of exclusivity and everything else. But again, what I think so fascinating about this, and for me, I see all the different train cars, but I don't know how to put them in the right order. Where it's that idea of, on Beyond, right? For years talking about Housemarque, the conversation would be, okay, why isn't PlayStation buying them? Or, how do you decide who you buy? And if you have a great relationship with somebody, cool, you don't need to do it. But then on the other breath, I would think that, Housemarque is such a proud studio. They are super proud of being in Helsinki and being independent and being the oldest Finnish game studio. They talk about that all the time. There's a documentary you can go watch right now on Amazon Prime and probably rent in a million other places, but I use Amazon Prime Video, about them going through and making their game, right? Like they are a studio that gets it and likes to be out there. And I have to imagine that if I was a betting man, I would think years ago at some point, PlayStation had approached them about picking them up or had that kind of conversation, or Housemarque was just either way always very public about, no, we want to be independent, we want to be able to do whatever we want to do, right? And they found this healthy relationship with PlayStation for exclusivity and stuff, and saw their review scores and their cachet, I would say, with our side of the industry, the super enthusiast, you listen to a podcast every week about PlayStation side of the industry, right? But that whatever game they were on didn't make a lot of money. And so, but I think there was always that feeling of, well, the next one will do even better. The next one will do even better because we're going to ride the energy and the coattails of what we're talking about and who we are. And our it's what I always talk about with, like, When is, how Ghost of Tsushima is this huge breakout for Sucker Punch after they make a bunch of stuff. Spider-Man's a huge breakout for Insomniac, even though they've been making great games and have a fan base. Now they're bigger than ever, right? I think they were always looking for a breakthrough moment, and I imagine they would always think the next game was going to be it. And so then when you get to August 2017, when they're like, the next moment isn't coming, and we need to pivot to be able to keep being a studio. We need to pivot to be able to do this. Like, the Arcade is Dead blog post was always interesting to me because it kind of read like a flare of like, hey, everybody in the industry who loves us and respects us and likes our games, and I'm talking people who are paying for the games, the publishers of games, we're not going to do those anymore because we're SOL right now on people buying them. And so I always read that more as like, oh, somebody coming to them for an exclusivity deal, a Game Pass deal, a PlayStation Now deal. But clearly they must have been also putting it out there of like, hey, we're in a position where we want to have a different partnership if you want those kind of games. And so, to go then to January 2020, where they're talking about, we are very humbled to have amazing support from our partner over the course of the past few years. And this support has continuously grown on a monthly basis. To your point, Janet, of they announced it now. How long has this deal been going, right? Like, think about how early we knew about Xbox and Bethesda, right? And granted, bigger company, more legs to or more, people, yada, 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 that are involved in legal checks or whatever. But I would say that, yeah, they definitely were on track before this. And that's why, they put so much into Returnal, why there is so much promotion for Returnal. It was, this soft launch of a first party that you get to put this game out and be like, look at how good we're being to this independent developer, which we'll talk about in a second. And look at, this partnership we've made to make a great game that is so in line with what the DNA of Housemarque is, but looks way different than something like Super Stardust HD.
Yeah, like I think that this too, I know we're probably going to touch on it in a second, but the Blue Point thing as well.
This is what I'm talking about. This whole episode's interconnected. You can bring in Blue Point right now if you want to, Bless.
Yeah, I'll bring in Blue Point right now because that's one that is all but confirmed. When they announced the Housemarque acquisition, the PlayStation, was it the Japan account? There was some other account.
Yeah,
the Japan account.
I can read to get. Yeah, if you bear that you have it up already. Yeah, Nibel put it up on Twitter that day, right as the Housemarque stuff happened. This went up too. ... So apparently, PlayStation Japan uploaded the wrong image for their first tweet on Housemarque's acquisition, but it actually mentions a Blue Point acquisition. I was able to verify this since TweetDeck still shows deleted tweets. So if you hadn't caught it, this is the exact. This welcome to the PlayStation family, and I'm talking if you're a YouTube viewer. It says PlayStation Studios, then it's the Blue Point Games logo, and then it says welcome to the PlayStation family. This exact thing is how they announced Housemarque. PlayStation Studios, Housemarque, welcome to the PlayStation family. And since we're already here, this is how they announced Nix's too, another studio they bought. So clearly, PlayStation is on a buying frenzy. They are coming off the bench and they are making big moves on it. So I'm sorry, back to you.
But back to me, right? Like between these three acquisitions, none of these are shocking. Like none of these are ones that I think catches left field. Nix's a little bit because I don't think many of us are super aware of Nix's or super familiar with them. And
every Avengers player is well aware of Nix's. All right, we saw him every time on the Avengers screen. Nix's was right there. All right,
you know what? We're aware of Nix's.
I know the facts. I'm sorry you don't like them. These are just the facts.
I mean, I think it's surprising, Blessing, just in the fact that like besides Avengers players, like we don't really know them, but when you look into like what they're known for doing, then it makes sense of like why PlayStation would bring them in.
If you don't know Nix's, ladies and gentlemen, let me drop the information on them because I assume you know Blue Point, obviously. Kings and queens of the remake, right? Of Demon Souls, Shadow of the Colossus, right?
And I do also want to point out in that Blue Point Games image, there is also the knight from Demon Souls as well. That was added.
Nix's, however, I'm going to read from IGN where Joe Screbbles describes it like this. PlayStation has acquired Nix's, a Dutch studio that specializes in porting games to PC. Announced by head of PlayStation Studios, Herman Hulst, Nix's has been bought for an undisclosed fee. The studio will provide high-quality, in-house technical and developmental capabilities for PlayStation Studios, according to a release. Nix's has worked extensively with Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and IO Interactive since forming in 1999, porting the recent Tomb Raider trilogy and the two most recent Deus Ex games to PC. While no specifics have been given about Nix's work for PlayStation, it feels likely the studio will support Sony's increased focus on porting its console-exclusive games to PC. PlayStation is coming out swinging. They're striking back, Janet.
Yeah, I also love that this was like all this information came out because someone was like, did you upload version like 1 for sure or version 2 the real one or whatever, like with the images getting mixed out.
Did you upload welcome to the family hm.jpg or welcome to the family?
I love how, and this is just me just theorizing or whatever, but with the Nixus thing, they did not tweet out the image. The image does exist of the welcome to the family, but Nixus are the ones that put it out themselves on their own blog, but it didn't like PlayStation didn't tweet it out. And I wonder if that was a thing of like, no, we're not tweeting these images out anymore because we're not going to accidentally leak Bluepoint again.
Well, see, I think again, if I'm a betting man, fly on the wall, what happened there is that Bluepoint was supposed to be announced last week, I think too. And I would because there was a question on Games Daily when it happened of like, what? So now that they've fucked this up, when are they actually going to do it? And on the Games Daily, I was refreshing Twitter because I was like, I think it could happen at any point, any time, because the idea here, knowing how tight-lit PlayStation is, I bet, they sent all the social accounts and the devs, the specific, we made all your graphics, here they are, make sure you nail the time. And then PlayStation Japan fucked it up. And they're like, cool, give it breathing room. Let's not get on top of it. Nixes, don't use it when you do the don't do the thing like that. And that's why I keep joking this episode going up on Tuesday and why I want to talk about it as if it's 100% accurate. And I don't think it is going to be inaccurate.
I mean, it can't be inaccurate, right? Like the image exists. We know what's going to happen. And
what if they just make the images to like speak it into existence? You know, like studios they'd like.
They're still talking, but like Jim Ryan he texted the graphics down. He was like,
our photos together. Like
this is going to happen. We're still making the deal, but it's not going to fall through.
Out there, there is an image of PlayStation.
It's the weirdest like way to put pressure on people of just like, there it is. It's like when Phil Spencer spoke Control coming to Game Pass into existence, and Remedy's like, no, we're not.
But yeah, like this all speaks to you a focused vision for PlayStation that we're all aware of and we can all see. Bluepoint is basically in that same Housemarque camp of they do amazing work. They've made first-party PlayStation games, and their games are very, very high scoring critically, and their games do well commercially as well. And so this one makes sense. And then Nixus as a company for as a porting studio makes sense as well. One, for the PC shift that PlayStation is having with their PlayStation Studios games, where we've seen it with I was gonna say Death Stranding, which I think does count, even though I don't know. I guess 505 published that on PC, so even if I take that one out, you still have Days Gone and Horizon that are PC games as well that fit in with that strategy.
Yeah, but I think you can toss that in there. Again, we understand, we've explained it, but because trust me, when I get to my theory about why you're getting Last of Us Part 2 director's cut, my Death Stranding director's cut, followed immediately by Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, is immediately followed by Last of Us Part 2 director's cut.
Well, to bring in Nixus into that conversation, because I think one, they're doing PC porting, but it would also make sense if you don't want Naughty Dog to focus on porting games to PS5 or porting games to other platforms. Nixus is there to help, right? You don't need your PlayStation first-party studios working on things that could be worked on by another studio. And so I think all this falls in line. And I know the title of this podcast and the focus on topic of the show is PlayStation Strikes Back. But I also think that like this is PlayStation doing what PlayStation does. If anything, this feels like PlayStation reconfirming, PlayStation reaffirming, PlayStation being PlayStation.
It's not as exciting though to think of it that way, but I
mean, it's not an exciting headline for sure.
These are like the three horsemen of the PlayStation ideology. You know, it's like, okay, we have first party, new IPs, building up what you might fall in love with later with Returnal if that becomes some form of a franchise or something, right? Then you have Bluepoint with remakes. Like their philosophy, instead of leaning into, backwards compatibility, is to just remake, repolish, enhance, repackage, whatever, to get new players into IPs they maybe haven't already been into. And then Nixus with the, PC ports, that's also a new pillar for them. So it's kind of funny how they have like, no pun intended, how they have all three of those that are like three kind of what I consider to be the core pillars of what PlayStation does.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing about, Strikes Back. It's in line, I feel, just getting off the bench of talking again, right? And it's that one thing of speak softly and carry a big stick, right? Where I think, the conversation has been so much of like, sure, Xbox keeps talking about Game Pass or keeps talking about acquisitions, but that's still stuff you're looking so far into the future for the most part. Maybe not Game Pass, depending on Sea of Thieves. But, in terms of what fruit Bethesda is going to bear, right? What Starfield will actually be, whereas PlayStation's trying to make moves that are more relevant to the moment, right? Buying Returnal or Housemarque right after Returnal, right? Getting out that way, showing what they're doing there, let alone, doing something like Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, which again,
Oh, yeah.
a weird episode where everything's coming together. Blessing, this is usually your PlayStation update. It's number 1 on your PlayStation update. I want to introduce it here, but keep talking about this conversation.
Yeah, so I'll bring it in. This was part of PlayStation updates that Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is real. I forget where the places we talked about this were. I think we talked about this on the latest PS I Love You, or the last PS I Love You, but we talked about it as Ghost of Ikishima, which was rumored to be a standalone thing. It looks like that is actually DLC for the director's cut. I'm pulling from the PlayStation blog, a blog written by Andrew Goldfarb, titled Andrew Goldfarb. He's a dude that I think works over there. At the studio. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut arrives on PS5 and PS4 consoles on August 20th. Rapid to announce that on August 20th, we'll be releasing Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut on both PS5 and PS4 consoles. This new edition comes packed not only with the original game and every piece of additional content we've sold to date, but a brand new adventure for Jin alongside a bunch of new features that we're excited to reveal. If you're a history buff, you may know that in addition to Tsushima, the neighboring island of Iki was also invaded during this time period. Today we're excited to reveal that a whole new chapter in Jin's journey is coming and will take place on Iki. In this new story, Jin travels to the island to investigate rumors of a Mongol presence. But soon, he finds himself caught up in events with deeply personal stakes that will force him to relive some traumatic moments from his past. We'll have more to share about the story of Iki soon, but today we can confirm that beyond a whole new story and new characters, this new island also features tons of new content, including brand new environments to explore, new armor for Jin as well as his horse, new mini games, new techniques, new enemy types, and much more. There are even new animals to pet. There's also a bunch of new features for this Director's Cut package. New features include new trophies on both platforms, Japanese lip sync on PS5 thanks to real-time rendering. On PS5, you're also getting haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, enhancements to 3D audio, drastically improved load times, 4K resolution options, and frame rate targeting 60 FPS, all those standard PS5 features that we come to know and love. You're also getting save transfer from the PS4 version to the PS5 version, new accessibility options for alternate controller layouts, as well as the option to enable a target lock-on during combat. I won. I did it. I've been asking for this.
In the spoiler cast, didn't Nate be like, that's just not, we looked into it, but we didn't want to do it?
Yeah, I knew they could do it. I'm glad they're
Happy
finally
birthday.
bringing it. Man, it's the best birthday of all time. It's a great birthday. But then they're also bringing in the option to hide your quiver during gameplay. And then a free rephrase that, free Ghost of Tsushima Legends updates, including an all-new mode, which I'm extremely excited about because I love Ghost of Tsushima Legends, and I don't have theories on what this new mode is, but I hope that it is some sort of PvP. It probably wouldn't work. It probably wouldn't work for it to be like a players slash at each other, but if it is maybe a take down your horde faster versus another team of players, or like a PvP survival mode type thing, I think there could be potential there, and I would absolutely love that. That or a new raid. Give me a new raid, but that doesn't really make sense as a new quote unquote mode. But
sure,
give me something. There's also like an interesting pricing structure to it. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is going to launch on August 20th for $69.99 US dollars on PS5 and then $59.99 on PS4. But if you already own Ghost of Tsushima on PS4, you can pre-order an upgrade to Director's Cut on PS4 for $20. That upgrade will become available starting on August 20th. And then starting August 20th, the pricing looks like this. If you bought Director's Cut on PS4, you'll be able to upgrade to the Director's Cut on PS5 at any time for $10. And then you can also upgrade directly from the original Ghost of Tsushima PS4 to Director's Cut on PS5 for $30. And that's a whole conversation by itself, but to bring it back into the overall conversation, yeah, there's a big thing, right? We just got Death Stranding Director's Cut announced back at Jeff Keighley's kickoff live for Summer Games Fest, and now we're getting another Director's Cut of Ghost of Tsushima, which seems to be doubling down on Tsushima as a game and giving us more content, which is always a good thing.
It's kind of weird to hear about this one before hearing about the Death Stranding one a little bit, because I kind of like it feels like this came so quick, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if the leak played any role in it, but where it's like, it's here and here's all the details. I'm like, oh, you can give me all the information once you reveal it. I thought you were gonna have this long drawn thing. Now maybe it's because I don't really know what Death Stranding's at for that, or maybe they just want to play it up more and make it more of a big deal. I'm not really sure, but I was a little surprised to get all the info dropped at once. I think this also gives us a window into what we can expect. This to me sort of sets the financial tone for what a director's cut is, where it's Right, it'll be its own, like, you can buy it as a game if you just never bought the game, and the pricing structure will look like any other AAA game, 60 on last gen, 70 on current gen, and then you can just do these piecemealed upgrades if you are, you already own the game, which it's better than, I don't know, it's better than it's been historically. Like, these pricing models are always kind of confusing, and I'm not looking forward to the process of putting in the proper stuff and downloading whatever. And then, of course, there's always the conversation of, like, is it too expensive for what it is? I mean, I think if you like the game, like, it's fine. But for me, like, as someone that wasn't a huge fan on Ghost, I don't know that I'm super enticed to play more of a game that I thought was good. Like, it was fine. Like, I feel like I spent my time with it. And
Janet, me and you got to play some Legends.
It's fun.
I mean,
plus got to drag all
that's
of us
an
through
interesting
Legends.
point, though.
I guess.
Because Janet, I'm on the same level as you, where it's like I just couldn't get into that game whatsoever. But some of these improvements here are, like, speaking to me to possibly go back, especially with that lock on, because that combat fucking needed a locked on, and that was one of my biggest gripes with that game. So it's like one of those things, like, hell, like I might go back to that game and actually give it the time a lot of people think it deserves. So.
The new trophies are interesting.
I want to bring the four of us into Legends because I know Greg touched Legends.
You and I did a stream once, and I never came back to it after that. But it wasn't because I didn't like it. I just was playing something else at the time.
Yeah, I think it was Avengers that might have been the one at the time. And then,
I mean, with me, probably everybody.
Yeah, and Janet, I don't know if you or Barrett touched Legends, but it's a different game.
Legends.
It's like
I played like 6 hours
game.
of the actual game, so no, I definitely did not touch Legends.
Yeah,
I did beat
think
the base
four
game.
of us would have fun. I
This
think it would be fun.
Roping this into the conversation of PlayStation striking back, right, or at least coming out and getting off the bench. Like, this speaks to me in the same way what Janet was just saying of the pillars of PlayStation, right? And this idea here of, okay, we've seen the success of something like Miles Morales on PlayStation 5. How can we replicate that with something like Ghost, where we want to give you more, not a full-fledged game, but let's go. And so that's, for me, with the pricing, like, I admit it's clunky when you look at it, but when you think about it, I think it's pretty easy to wrap your head around of, like, all right, cool, this is a $20 DLC if I want to play it on PlayStation 4, and if I want to play it on PlayStation 5, it's $30 because it's an upgrade of $10 more, right? Since I already own it. And the way they're I talked about this on Games Daily, right? The way Goldfarb writes about it here, right? Where he's talking about, today we're excited the new chapter, right? It's going to take place on this. In the new story, he travels to the island, investigate rumors of a Mongol presence, but he finds himself caught up in this blah, 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 blah. Beyond the new story and new characters, the new island features tons of new content, including brand new environments to explore, new armor for him and his horse, new mini-games, new techniques, new enemy types, and much more, let alone new trophies.
New animals.
Yeah, and new animals to pet, right? For me, that's like, it sounds, there's $30, like, no problem. I loved Ghost, and that was one of those games that when I platinumed, I was like, oh man, it's over. Like, it was one of those kind of games where I wanted more from it. So the idea of getting more in this world gets me so excited in the same way Miles Morales did, of like, okay, cool, like, yep, it's, Spider-Man 1.5. It's not, changing everything. It's not going to be a revolution, but I just want more of those worlds, and I want more of those worlds quicker. I'm super stoked about that. And I am super stoked to see that PlayStation seems to, as we talk about the pillars of what they are and what PlayStation 5's generation is going to be, if that's what these director's cuts are, well, hell yeah. And then it gets me wondering of, like, Death Stranding, when they announced it at Jeff's thing, it was just a trailer. We have way more information, right, about Ghost than we do about Death. And so it is that idea of, like, okay, cool, what exactly are they going to add? And what does that get me interested in the same way? Because Death Stranding I really enjoyed, but I never came back after I beat it. And then to think of The Last of Us, it would be like, well, what would you put in as the director's cut part of Last of Us Part 2? What is there going to be in Abby and Lev mission? I saw somebody tweet about that. That got me super excited. Like, what could you do there that could be fun?
You know what's interesting about this structure? I'm just now realizing that, how, like, everyone's like, I feel like it's kind of petty to make me pay for an upgrade, like a PS4 game enhanced to now be PS5, like bring in like haptic feedback and stuff. And a lot of people didn't really like that. I wonder if this is not that this would be the only reason they would do it, but like a way to Trojan horse you paying for the update. Because it's like, oh, well, I mean, you could just pay for the upgrade, or you can spend a little bit more and you get DLC. And now it feels less like, it feels a little bit more, I guess it's more normalized to pay for DLC. So it kind of just lets you lead in there. And it's like, oh, I'm not paying for the upgrade, I'm paying for DLC, but you're paying also for the upgrade.
I think for PlayStation, it's their way of having an elegant solution to how do we have a PS5 version of this game, but also make it a full price thing that people are going to be okay paying for? Because they could just do a Ghost of Tsushima remastered, but how you justify that being $70, and what is the point of having it be a remaster when you do have the updates for PS5, making it a pretty decent an even better version when you're even playing the PS4 version through the PS5. And I think for them the answer is, all right, cool, let's just do DLC, but make it so that the DLC is baked into a new version and is called that director's cut, so that by the time people get the PS5 version, we can list all these benefits that makes it better than the PS4 version. We can say things like, oh yeah, with the real-time rendering, you get Japanese lip sync, you get all the PS5 features, you get X, Y, and Z, but then also you do get new content that traditionally would just be DLC. Traditionally, we would just pay the extra money so that we can play the new content. But this is PlayStation's way of being like, hey, we're PlayStation, and we are the premium experience with first party, and so we are going to bake that stuff in. Call it make it a more premium experience, and call it a director's cut in a way where when you get in there, you feel like you're playing something that's bigger and better as opposed to just regular DLC.
I hear you, and I feel like it's the normal thing where so much of this is much ado about nothing, where I think it is we have to look at what Ghost of Tsushima PS4 was, right? And it was, I think, a great game, but it's arguable if you want to be Janet Bear, which the games don't all hit for each other. But they put out Ghost, I thought fantastic game, chock full of content, plenty of shit to do, beautiful. Then they gave you Legends for free. Granted, free is in quotes, you bought the game, but you know what I mean? Nobody was expecting Legends. You didn't buy Ghost expecting to get Legends, right? And then it is enhanced already on PlayStation 5. So if you did get a PlayStation 5, you can go in there and turn on a bunch of bells and whistles to make it look even better, right? Now we're talking about, now the director's cut, and do you want to spend, $20, and what are they putting in there, and what are they taking, all these different things. Like, I don't see the kerfluffle there in the terms of like, I think not knowing anything, not having played it, right? My trust in Sucker Punch is that the DLC alone is worth the $20 to get me out of the station. And then when you start talking about, well, is it worth the $10 to upgrade to PlayStation 5? That's where you get into a different conversation of like, the PlayStation 5 is this machine. Most of us, I don't want to say all, but a lot of people bought to have the best looking game, to have this completely luxury thing, right? That runs better, looks better, does all these things incredibly well. And so then it's like, well, it's $10. Like, is this the experience you want? And it's an old game. You don't have to play it. Maybe you already played it.
I feel like this is like when they have the small soda and the large sodas like 50 cents more. This is exactly that. And which is really smart from like a business standpoint. And like, hey, you do get more content. So I'm not, knocking the creative element that goes into it, about like the game being fun or enjoyable or adding something interesting to the story. But yeah, that's kind of what this is for me, because I'm definitely if this just had like PlayStation 5 bells and whistles with haptic feedback and stuff, $10, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not gonna care personally.
Yeah.
But with DLC, I'm like, well, now I feel like if I don't drop 30 and get the whole thing and only drop it neither feels like quite enough for me, but like the combination, even though I'm not that interested in either, is appealing. And I think they know that and probably will do that moving forward. And I think it is at least, better than, I think it's a good solution, to bring it back to Blessing's point of like eloquent solutions or elegant solutions for wanting to charge for that upgrade, but wanting to make it feel like people are getting enough out of what they're being charged for it.
I also think it's that thing of PlayStation just seeing themselves as higher than other developers and publishers. Because when was the last time we had paid DLC for PlayStation Studios, like a first party single player game? Is there any that come to mind where it's like, okay, yeah, it's an expansion that you're paying for that expansion?
I mean, I'm jumping way far back, so I'm sure there's one before, but I'll start
it's
there.
Not standalone, also.
Well, Left Behind wasn't standalone at launch, right?
Yeah, Left Behind would be an example, I think.
Yeah.
So like, the closest thing I can think of in recent years, and this is kind of cheating because it isn't PlayStation first party, is Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah, and I wouldn't count that.
You're talking specifically about it.
Yeah, but that's the closest thing in recent years that I can even think of that comes close.
Spider-Man, right? What about City that Never Sleeps and all that stuff?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's actually a good example.
That,
right?
Yeah, that's definitely an example of that. But I even still, I think it's few and far between, because like Legends was a free expansion, right, for Ghost of Tsushima proper. Spider-Man Miles Morales, of course, is a standalone thing. Lost Legacy is standalone, and like those are even sizable enough to where you do consider those full games. And the times that I think of DLC that I would maybe even count as DLC, maybe Infamous First
and
Light,
also Frozen Wilds. Chad is pointing out Frozen
Wilds, another good one, another very good one. But I think even still, if Horizon Zero Dawn came through let's say in 2020 or 2019, I think instead of releasing Frozen Wilds as a standalone thing, I think you would just be getting Horizon Zero Dawn director's cut for the PS5. Yep. I think that's the way they would package it, because I think for PlayStation, that gives them the way of being like, hey, here's a fancier version of the thing you already have, but then also being like, here's justification for it coming out full price and gives us the opportunity to resell it. And then not have to worry about it being like a DLC that's floating around. We'll just package it as a full thing.
It's giving you whether or not the illusion, right, of value on what you're getting, because you're getting this whole game, but you're doing this, you're only going to play part of it. But that's part of it for me, where it's like, right now, yeah, like I could buy the Island of Iki, or the Iki DLC here, right, or whatever, or buy the director's cut for $20, right? But I can then play the PS4 version on my PS5, but I want it to look as fancy as possible, especially if I'm going to spend, I don't know, 6 to 10 hours in the game or whatever. Like, yeah, I want those 6 to 10 hours to look awesome, because I'm not going to go back and replay Ghost of Tsushima base game unless I have to unlock all my trophies again, which I sincerely thought they would do.
Yeah.
But yet another example here of PlayStation striking back and coming and doing this. However, all this leads to something I found interesting. And this is very much splitting hairs and getting into how you define something. But when the Housemarque stuff happened, so when the Housemarque stuff went up, but before the Blue Point leak and before we knew anything about Nix's, British GQ sat down with Herman and had a conversation there, right? This is the question that I like from it. There are a lot of companies making acquisitions in gaming at the moment. Microsoft just bought Bethesda for $7.5 billion. Facebook has scooped up a lot of developers in the VR space of late, and now Sony is purchasing Housemarque. Looking at the industry from the outside, it feels a bit like an arms race. Is that how you see it, Herman? Herman responds, no, not at all. We're very selective about the developers we bring in. Our last new acquisition was Insomniac for this is a note, he didn't say this, for $229 million in 2019, which has worked out very well. I'm always looking for people that have a similar set of values, similar creative ambitions, and work very well with our team that we can further invest in and help grow as creators. It's not like we're going around and just making random acquisitions. They're very, very targeted acquisitions of teams that we know well. The amount of collaboration between our external development group and Housemarque on the technical side, the production management side, and even on the creative side has been so deep. For us, it just makes so much sense to do that. Obviously, this is not something we do overnight. Back to or I guess it would be Ari from Housemarque, and my team have been working on this for quite a while. But we obviously didn't want to distract the core group at Housemarque. That's been working to get this amazing title out. He says immediately, no, it's not at all. It's not an arms race at all. Right on the heel in a week where they announced kind of that they bought 3 studios. Mm-hmm. Blessing, do you agree?
I'm in the middle of it. I think the immediate knee-jerk reaction would be to be like, of course, it's an arms race. Like, your competitor just acquired one of the biggest publishers, and now you're acquiring 3 studios. Of course, it's an arms race. But I think removed from the Bethesda acquisition from Xbox, I think these would have still happened. PlayStation would have still eventually have acquired Housemarque and Bluepoint, because PlayStation has worked closely with Housemarque and Bluepoint. Same with Insomniac. I think all this falls in line in a way that really makes sense. If PlayStation bought EA, for example, or bought some of the WB game studios, then I think it'd be a different conversation of, of course, it's an arms race. You guys are out here doing this, but I don't think it's an arms race to the most extreme extent. I think it is we're staying competitive and we're doing what we need to do to keep up and like do what's best for our brand. But I don't think it is reactionary to Bethesda. I think, or reactionary to even all of the Xbox acquisitions. I think if you were going to be reactionary to those, you'd be making bigger moves than Housemarque and Bluepoint, even though those are big moves. But you would have to be you would have to work bigger than that.
Janet, do you think it's an arms race?
A little bit, yeah. And I don't think he'd never say yes to this. He'd never say, like, it would be like, no, you would never. This is the kind of question that, this is a very pure answer. And like, I think reading between the lines or just looking at the industry like this, which I think is a great interview question for that reason. Yeah, I mean, it always is in a sense, but obviously the reason you can't why don't you just buy everything then and then you won? Well, you still have to you have to spend money and make money. It's like a loop. So you can't just, well, I mean, some people in the world really could just buy everything because they're that rich. Like, the super, super, super rich people really could do that. And that could happen at any time, technically. Jeff Bezos could be like, I'm gaming now, and buy everything. And, that would maybe be the end of it, and the industry would collapse, because I don't think he probably knows what he's doing with that. But yeah, there's no there's no rules to this. I think a lot of times when especially what I hear from just like gamers in the community, people look at these acquisitions and they're like, oh, well, this one feels like it's right because they work so closely together, while like this one feels like you just want it to, it's pay to win. You just, of course, it's capitalism. It's all pay to win. Like this is business, and there is no like playing fair. It's not like the other day my brother was talking to like me and my household about how the NBA has salary caps. Like you can only pay certain players a certain percentage of like the entire like money that circulates in the NBA, and it's to stop stuff like that from happening. Because otherwise it's like, okay, I'm just gonna pay LeBron as much as I possibly can. I'm just gonna build a super team, and then the NBA is not going to be of any intrigue. Like they have those caps to keep it competitive. There's no caps like that in this space. So yeah, Facebook is coming in, and like when you put on your Quest, there might be a world where you have the logging into Facebook thing, and you have the like that is how this works. So I don't think it's an arms race in the sense that I don't believe all of their business is predicated on what their competitors do, because that's a losing strategy. But they absolutely notice what's going on around it, and I think that is a little bit part of things. Obviously, if everyone gets bought, if you don't make a move, someone else might get them, and that is why you end up losing studios or losing franchises. And we've seen this happen throughout history, and it'll continue to happen. So it's not a race in the sense that like, Xbox pulling away won't, well, actually, yes, it can hurt Sony. So it's a little bit of a race. It's a little bit of a race. Yeah.
See, that's my thing is I do think they are in an arms race. However, Herman's doing a very narrow definition, right? In what the way he frames the question of is it an arms race, he's framing it as that it would be a shopping spree. Holy shit, buy as many developers as you possibly can. I don't care if we worked with them. I don't care what we've done with it before. I do think that these moves are happening. Yes, they would have happened before, maybe not, whatever. They make logical sense if you remove Bethesda from the conversation and what Xbox is doing, right? However, I do think that they're happening because, of course, you don't want all these people independent, because you don't want the success of, we funded Returnal's game. It was amazing. And you see this a little bit, not 100%, but a little bit with stuff like Deathloop, right? Where, all right, this is going to be exclusive to us. We've paid for this. That game looks amazing. Bethesda gets scooped up. Not exactly the same, I know, but stick with me. Of Returnal, if they were still out, right? If they were still owned and operated independently, we partnered with PlayStation, we made Returnal, that's done, awesome. Then yeah, why wouldn't Phil Spencer swoop in and be like, all right, let's talk about your next game. Do you want to be Xbox Game Pass exclusive? You can point to, as I'm about to, something like Drinkbox, right? Which, not the scale by any stretch of the imagination of Housemarque and the games they're making in terms of how big Returnal is, but in the same breath, you're talking about like, oh man, like you think of these studios, Bluepoint, Housemarque, Insomniac, before they got bought, as a PlayStation studio, even though they weren't. That's how I felt about Drinkbox, right? Drinkbox had been, come around because of the Sony Pub Fund. That is what, gave them a huge boost. It's what got their games going. It's what led to things like Guacamelee. It's what led to things like Severed. And then, they kept making those games. And granted, I know they put them on iOS and then they went to Xbox as well. But I still thought of them as PlayStation forward, as PlayStation first. And then you get to now, Nobody Saves the World, right? And guess what? That is an Xbox exclusive. That is an Xbox Game Pass day one, day date.
And to your point, Craig, that's how I thought about Supermassive. That's how I thought about Quantic Dream, and that's how I thought about Kojima Productions. And the latest reports have been that Kojima is talking to Xbox to make a game over there, which falls in line with exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the thing that points more toward the arms race nature of it is more so the partnerships that PlayStation is having with studios like Haven Studios with Jade Raymond or Firewalk and Deviation, where it is, all right, cool, we got to figure out ways to get in partnerships so that we have a larger stream of games on our platform. I think the acquisitions that they're making are PlayStation-ass acquisitions, but the things like those partnerships, and then also things like Deathloop being a PlayStation exclusive and Ghostwire Tokyo being PlayStation exclusives, those were definitely moves that were made because they were trying to be competitive toward the launch of a new console. And those, I think, reflect back on all right, we got to do something. All right, we got to make big moves. We got to put pressure on them. And I think that is very much indicative of the arms raceness of it.
Sure. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Now, again, an episode where it's all melding together. Mm-hmm. We're going to pivot to PlayStation updates, right? Because the next one is all about indies being fed up with PlayStation. And I think that talks about what we're talking about right here, from the top down of what PlayStation's main priorities are to then what's happening with the people who are giving you games week in, week out. But before we tackle that, let's have a word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Purple. Doesn't it seem like the world's against us from getting a good night's sleep this time of year? It's too hot, the mattress is too stiff, too much is going on. I have the answer for you. Only Purple mattress have the grid. Its unique ventilated design allows air to flow through to help you sleep cool. They also have the grid in the pillow. I've been using that forever and I will never use another pillow. It is a game changer. You don't even need to flip it to the cold side because the entire thing is the cold side. It's perfect. It just never overheats. I don't understand it, but it works. Purple is comfort reinvented. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of 200 or more. Go to purple.com/kindafunny10 and use promo code kindafunny10. That's purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. purple.com/kindafunny10. Promo code kindafunny10. Terms apply. And next up, shout out to FitBod. Don't get stuck doing the same workouts. Making progress towards the future you means overcoming new challenges. FitBod creates a fitness program that continually adapts with new exercises and dynamic intensity that adjusts to how you're progressing. So you'll be challenged to meet your goals at your own pace. Gia's been using this. She's been really loving how easy it is to use and how varied it all is. Just kind of keeping her active. FitBod is super easy to use and even has HD video tutorials to make learning new exercises a breeze. It integrates with other fitness and health apps like Apple Health, Fitbit, and Strava. Personalized training can be tough on the budget, but FitBod is only $9.99 a month or $59.99 a year. And right now, you can pick up the pace on your fitness journey with FitBod today, and your future self will thank you. Get 25% off your membership at fitbod.me/kfgames. That's 25% off at fitbod.me/kfgames.
All right, Blessing, hit me with some PlayStation updates.
Yeah, so this is one that has been developing over the course of the last week. It started with a thread from a developer and then turned into IGN articles and Bloomberg articles. And so I'm gonna go with the IGN article written up by Rebecca Valentine titled "Why Indie Publishers Are Fed Up with PlayStation." It reads like this. I'm only gonna read part of it because it is a longer article, but then I'm going to get into the actual thread that started it all. And so again,
great stuff from Reb. Yeah, go to IGN and read this. It's a really interesting read with a whole bunch of different indie devs.
Yeah, this was the required reading on KFGD last Friday, and so definitely go and give it a click, read through the full thing because there's a lot of valuable info in here. But for this portion, again, this is Rebecca Valentine at IGN. After a console generation in which it seemingly abandoned indie titles in the face of the overwhelming success of the PS4, it appears that Sony's struggle to court small developers is far from over. A group of indie publishers have taken to Twitter this week to express their frustrations with the console giant, pointing out issues like its lack of communication, frustrating bureaucracy, issues with discoverability, and severe limitations on when and how games can be put on sale. The conversation was kicked off by Neon Doctrine co-founder Lane Garner, who wrote a Twitter thread criticizing, quote, Platform X, which he said was a, quote, a very successful console and does not have Game Pass, end quote. Garner's thread, which has been quote tweeted by several indie publishers at the time of publication, affirming many of the issues he lists, criticizes the so-called Platform X's tools, communications, and interest in supporting indies. He calls out a lack of transparent processes, poor communication, an extremely limited ability to discount games, and an inability to get games promoted on the store without their either obscure or expensive methods. Quote, Platform X gives developers no ability to manage their games. In order to get promotion, you must jump through hoops, beg and plead for any level of promotion. And a blog is not as good as they think it is, he wrote.
Damn.
Someone finally fucking said it.
That's some fucking fire right there. If Platform X doesn't like your game, no fanfare, no features, no love, end quote. The conversation sparked by the thread comes at a time when Sony seems to be trying in small ways to nudge the narrative around its indie support in a more positive direction. Last year, it launched a $10 million fund to support indie developers during COVID-19, and it recently appointed Shuhei Yoshida to lead a new initiative to support indie studios. This is following a PS4 console generation during which Sony seemed largely uninterested in such support, letting its efforts lapse and be largely outshone by its competitors' programs in ID at Xbox and Nintendo's Nindies, later called Nintendo Indie World, which have historically included in-person showcases, numerous digital showcases, blogs, tweets, behind-the-scenes support, and just a whole lot of games. Following Garner's thread, I spoke to 4 other indie publishers and 2 indie developers, one who self-published, about its contents, all of whom named Sony as the platform they specifically were criticizing, though they could not speak for Garner. Those I spoke to expressed frustration with various aspects of Sony's internal processes, communications, and restrictions that they said made it more challenging to release games on its platforms, especially smaller games. They also lamented the challenges of getting indie games seen anywhere, but many pointed out Sony actively hampered or was at least indifferent to these struggles, making PlayStation an extremely challenging platform for indie game sales compared to its competitors. A couple more notable things. Two said it was extremely challenging or even expensive to get a single dev kit, pointing out that Xbox had provided dev kits to either themselves or colleagues easily and for free. And then also, ultimately, the publishers and developers I spoke to, and this is from the perspective of Rebecca Valentine, developers I spoke to aren't asking for piles of free marketing or instant approval on all of their games. What they're looking for is a chance for their games to be seen in an overwhelming gaming ecosystem. And so that's the extent of what I'm reading from Rebecca Valentine's article. I do want to read the thread from Lane Garner, who kicked off this whole discussion and this whole week of reports and all this stuff, right, coming out of different outlets. Lane Garner's thread goes like this. This is from June 30th. Again, Lane Garner is from Neon Doctrine, an indie publisher. Okay, I'm mad enough to burn some bridges, because honestly, what's the point of a bridge that I'm not allowed to cross? So here's a thread about Platform X. I will not be defining Platform X, but it's the operator of a very successful console and does not have Game Pass. Platform X gives developers no ability to manage their games. In order to get promotion, you must jump through hoops, beg, and plead for any level of promotion, and a blog is not as good as they think it is. If Platform X doesn't like your game, no fanfare, no feature, no love. There is nothing you can do to fix this. Wishlists have no effect, so all of your personal marketing means nothing to Platform X. All that matters is their evaluation. How is this evaluation done? Don't know. They don't share that, nor will they share the value they ascribe to my game. So before you launch, you need to 1, develop the game for Platform X. 2, get through their incredibly difficult lot check spread over 3 generations of backend software. 3, submit a Platform X specific trailer. 4, write a Platform X blog. 5, submit multiple forms for social media. Oh, for 3 and 4, you need to go through an account manager. When asked how to get an account manager, we were told, quote, "I'm not sure, they're assigned by resources," end quote. And as we know, there's no way to know what resource level you've been assigned. By the way, you cannot even do a launch discount without getting their approval, and it is very limited. That's right, you can't do the thing that every other platform does, meaning Platform X owners will always get the worst deal. Oh, but don't worry, there is a way to guarantee you get featured. All you need to do is spend a very reasonable minimum of $25,000 to get featured. Oh, and then 30% of your subsequent earnings. Bargain. Now, when your game is on the platform, likely without any support from Platform X, you may think, no problem, I can sync up discounts on Platform X with Steam and others. Wrong. Discounts are invite only, and invites are also very limited. It's been literal years since we could put a title of ours in discount, and I spoke to some other very popular devs today, and they had the same experience. So even if your game does well at launch and thrives on other platforms, you may still never be invited. Why? Who knows? In conclusion, Platform X is super successful and awesome hardware, but their backend and process is straight out of the early 2000s. I have no idea how to succeed on this platform, and they won't tell me. Even if I do succeed, they may screw me anyway. So for any gamers who have wandered in here, next time you're unhappy about your game never being discounted on Platform X, or a game you want not launching on Platform X, please go complain to Platform X. I'm gonna walk my dogs and calm the fuck down. I may have thoughts later. I hope not. And that's where it ends.
I'm just saying, guys, it could be Nintendo. I'm just saying.
That's hilarious. I didn't even think of that. A couple things out the gate. One, we're not the only ones that mention Game Pass constantly when talking about PlayStation. It's the one without Game Pass. That is what what's known as. And 2, like in all seriousness, I just want to applaud Garner for even putting this out there and kind of getting the ball rolling on this conversation, because that's horrifying to do. To obviously he technically did not name the platform, but even so, read between the lines and and what I what's frustrating about reading this too is the way he kicks it off, right? I'm mad enough to burn bridges, I'm just gonna go for this. It is very clear, if you've ever, I hope y'all have not, but if you've been on the point where you write an angry thread like this or a frustrated thread, you know that it's been so long building up within you that finally one day you just sort of snapped and said, I'm going to put it all out there. So It pains me to hear that those frustrations built to that point. And I'm glad he put it out there because, like, as you mentioned, like, privately, other people reached out to him. And a lot of times when you do hear these stories from people, you have to think about all the stories that you're not hearing out of fear, out of like worrying about repercussions, out of not feeling like you're too big or too small. Yeah, just everything. So, this was so eye-opening for me just because I think, certainly myself, I feel like I have a little bit sometimes too much of an optimistic look at the industry. You see things like this indies on PS Plus, like this, I'm playing indies on PlayStation all the time, but you don't think, at least I don't think about always the bigger picture of all the games that I'm not seeing and why, and the things, what it really means to support an indie developer on a platform. For me, this was an eye opener because I'm like, okay, I have to stop, and think about what does support really mean? What do these developers actually need, and are they getting that? Because that kind of stuff isn't going to be highlighted forward facing. It's not going to be just the PS Plus game or whatever. It's so many other facets of the business that I think, as much as I'm not a developer right now, this is where the benefit comes in of talking to people and really pulling from that business end, because it does end up impacting the bottom line of the games we end up talking about on this show.
Sure, of course. Yeah, and I think that's what's so fascinating about the conversation that's come from it, right? Where, yeah, of course, shout out to Ian for writing about this and getting it out there. And then so many people to talk to. Reb, Jason Schreier put up a post about it today, talking about it and having more and more of a conversation about it. And I feel like there's a lot to unpack there, and it's different levels of like, oh, well, that's fucked up. That kind of makes sense, right? As you back off it. But it's more the idea when you're talking about it from the PlayStation perspective here, right? Of, it's fucked up that, yeah, it's so hard for them to get dev kits, right? And I understand you can't give dev kits to everybody, but what is the things there? How do you get an account management or manager? One of the things in Reb's thing, that came up in the conversations that were happening on Twitter, and then in Reb's article when she was writing about it and talking more about it, was this idea of like the copious amounts of paperwork and different things you have to file to get through these portals, and the fact that that's a grandfathered in thing from when PlayStation had it split up between territories, and they're trying to unify it. They said they were trying to unify it, but they're still working on it and getting it to that point. And like the minutia that the games can get caught up in not to get there, right? When you start stretching out a bit more, then you get into the problem that people have talked about forever with indie games, digital storefronts, but jumping off of the app store, which is like the race to the bottom. How do you get when there's this many games coming to something? How do you possibly get them all the publicity they deserve, their moment in the sun, right? And then you go to, well, is that PlayStation or the platform holders thing? And so the $25,000 for getting it featured, and then them talking about that being the start of it. I forget if it was Reb or if it was Jason's article talks more about like the tiers you can go up in, right? Like, that gets into a weird place for me personally, where I'm like, well, at that point, the PlayStation's treating it as advertising, right? And you would pay to advertise on IGN, or you pay to advertise on Kind of Funny, right? Now, should you be paying to advertise on a storefront? I don't know, but it would appear that's how their storefront works. And then if you weren't, how do you, with the 7 games that come out a day on PlayStation, and I'm playing fast and loose with numbers. Don't bother you're wronging me. You understand what I'm saying? How do you get through all those? And then let alone like, just because a game comes to the store, does it deserve to be advertised in features? This is not me talking shit about any of the developers or games we've talked about so far. I don't know them from Adam, right? Like, what is it? Lamentum Games? Like, I don't know those games, and I'm on the page over here looking at the games, and I don't know them. So I'm not talking shit about the games. I'm just saying, like, does every game deserve to be featured? But then you could go, well, does a shitty game deserve to be on the PlayStation Store? And we are into the entire mess of what the fuck you do with a digital storefront and how you do it. Because inevitably what's going to happen is, if you have these rules that you're playing by behind the scenes and not sharing them, you get fed up people that aren't coming there anymore, and you're not going to get great stuff. And I don't think, to the point we're making right now, and I forget who it was, in another one of I think it was Reb's article again. Yeah, Reb has everything. And the article is amazing and super, super long. There's somebody who gets called out in their Twitter thread, and they are successful and have a bunch of stuff that you might have heard of. And it's this pie chart of where their games sell, and they sell the least on PlayStation, right? Yeah. And so then it's like, well, okay, like guess what? Ding, ding, ding. There's a reason. And again, this is me speaking out of turn, but as somebody who's observing the industry, there's a reason I just talked about Drinkbox and why their game's not coming to PlayStation. There's a reason Hades launched on Switch and PC and not on PlayStation. I know it's coming now, right? You can start extrapolating why you're seeing more and more indies show up on Game Pass or show up on Switch before they ever get to PlayStation. Because if PlayStation fans aren't buying them, and maybe because they can't find them, but also I don't know how many PlayStation fans are going to the store every day and refreshing. If you're not finding them, what do you do with it? And it's such a problem. And it's awesome to have this conversation literally in the same breath as us talking about what the pillars of PlayStation are and what you know what I mean? Like PlayStation pillars are fucking sexy ass hardware and bomb ass first party games and big budget exclusives. And so guess what doesn't fit in there? An indie that could go anywhere and go anywhere. Like the fact that you can't, it isn't simple for an indie to lower their own price to give themselves a discount like it is on other stores. That's fucked up. Like that's the kind of shit you want it fixed, right, Bless?
Yeah, and I think that's where the issue lies. The fact that for me, it's the fact that PlayStation is the most popular platform. PlayStation is the platform that has over 100 million PS4s sold out there, and the PS5 is sold out, but still has sold over 7 million. You know, you have such a big platform and an important platform, and it seems like the common thread here between so many testimonies from indie publishers is that your platform is the worst to publish on for them, which I think is a huge problem. And I think is emblematic of the exact thing you just mentioned, where I remember a couple years ago going to PAX West, and PAX West has tons of indie developers that come through, show off the games, do all this stuff. And I was talking to, this was, I think, the year after the Switch, or maybe 2 years after the Switch. And I was talking to a bunch of different developers about their games and all this stuff. And the common thread was that so many of those games are coming out either exclusively on PC or exclusively on Switch. And the common thread through all those developers was that, well, yeah, these are the easiest platforms to develop for, and this is where our platforms are selling the most. And I think part of that is, of course, Switch was the hotness, especially for those first few years for indie games, because the portability factor and all these other things. Sure. I think another part of that is probably that thing that we're not seeing, which is publishing on PlayStation for indies oftentimes sucks, which is a big issue, and that leads to us losing out on for us as the audience, losing out on games coming to PlayStation. Hades was one of the biggest Game of the Year winners last year, and that didn't come to PlayStation, probably for what we're talking about here being one of the bigger reasons. You know, maybe that is me extrapolating, that is me theorizing. Maybe there's exclusivity there for PC and the Switch, who knows? But you got to imagine
definitely there was money from Switch and PC, but I think it's the same thing of I'm going to give you back the mic in a second. Sorry, but you're right. It's about priorities. PlayStation doesn't prioritize this little indie.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is priority. Where do we want to put our energy? It is difficult to develop games for 4 different platforms. We're talking about PC, Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation. And so what are the 1 and 2 platforms we're going to focus on first? And then we can work on the other ports later. And PlayStation is getting the short end of the stick oftentimes because, again, PlayStation is not the friendly platform for indies. And it sucks because this all, I think, comes back to the article from earlier in the year where where Jason Schreier put out the article about how PlayStation has this obsession with blockbusters, and again feeds back into this conversation we're having about the pillars of PlayStation, where it is for them, it seems like their priorities are with the big money makers for them, and then indies when it's convenient, right? Remember the early on in the PS4 generation where indies got hella support and indies were being showcased and indies were being played on PS4 because the library wasn't there. But once the PlayStation first party library started to catch up, you started seeing the indie support fall away. And I feel like now that we're in the first year of the PS5, we're seeing somewhat of a similar thing, right? That effort of, hey, let's put some effort into getting some PlayStation indies. Let's have Shuhei work with PlayStation indies. Let's have a page on PlayStation.com that is PlayStation.com/indies, where we highlight games like Solar Ash, and we highlight Bugsnax, and we highlight Tribes of Midgard, and all these other games that people are looking forward to. And we have these games on PS Plus, because in this first year, we need to build up that software library. We need to give people things to look forward to. We need to pad things out so that people feel like they're getting their money's worth out of a new platform. Sure. But by year 3 or 4, are we going to see the same indie support or the same highlighting of indies that we've seen in the first year? And the answer is probably no, which is a bummer. And for PlayStation, probably doesn't mean shit, because they're rocking with the first party games. They're rocking with the big third party games. They're rocking with making money off of Fortnite sales. They're rocking off of so many other things that aren't indie games. But I think it reflects badly for us, the audience, because that means that we're not seeing as many big indie games come day and date on PlayStation, which I think is a big problem.
Here's the fucked up thing, is I hear you and I agree with what you're saying. It's when we start using us, the PlayStation audience. I think it's that thing we have to realize that we are us, you, me, Janet, you listener, you viewer who are watching a PlayStation podcast every week. I think we are the minority of the PlayStation audience, where I think there is a PlayStation identity that does PSX and buys all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, blah, blah, blah. But even there, like, guess why PlayStation is doubling down on AAA tentpole exclusives, big AAA games? It's because they sell like crazy. And guess what? Indies don't. Now, this is 100% chicken, egg, cart, horse. Like, maybe if they did this, indies would sell better. Maybe that, but like, yes, that is true. But also in the same breath, Xbox is doubling down on indies, right? Like, Switch to an extent is with Indie World and all that stuff. But PlayStation isn't, and PlayStation's still number one. And I know that's even fishy right now because of the shortage on everything, right? And don't get me wrong, Nintendo sells incredibly well too. But your friend who just bought a Nintendo, are they talking to you about fucking playing Overboard on it? Or are they talking about Mario Kart? Are they talking about Super Smash Bros? Are they talking about Zelda, right? Like, there's this thing we all get not even wrapped up in, but like, we know how creative indies are. We love indies so much. But, you know, on this episode, we're talking about Chicory. We're doing a Chicory review, right? And it was the thing of, I pitched that to be this episode before all this PlayStation stuff happened, when we were laying out what's going to happen when we have to do an episode ahead of time and worry about headlines, right? And even doing that, I knew I was pitching an episode that, man, 9,000 people would really enjoy on YouTube, right? A podcast, you're all fantastic. The numbers are insane. You're crazy people, the amount of people who download this, listen to it. But in terms of like, and I'm not we're kind of funny, don't get me wrong, because of your support on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, I don't give a flying fuck about views or downloads. You're there for us week in, week out to make content that you enjoy, right? I look over here and I see Demetrius and I see Matt and I see Indy Ronan. Like, I know what the audience is. You're the people we're making the content for, right? But what I'm saying is that there is such a small audience that's going to click on the thumbnail that isn't fucking Ellie. That isn't this huge thing for Ghost. That isn't.
Let's just start putting Ellie in the thumbnail of all these indie games. Like, this is how we fix it.
That would be.
I'll love a Chicory thumbnail next to like someone from Bugsnax and just call it a day.
Do a Chicory thumbnail where you replace the character.
Kind of funny content, but the jerk the wheel back. I'm talking about that being a microcosm thermometer for the entire audience of PlayStation, where I don't know how PlayStation can get indies in front of more people and make them more of a big deal than something like Bugsnax has been made, and something like Kena or Solar Ash or Jet the Far Shore. You know what I mean? Yeah, all these things they're putting out there, like they're not doing is. PlayStation indies is not doing as well as they could, but I also don't think they're doing nothing. But then also I think the back end now and the financials, that's a completely different conversation than where I'm at right now with what I'm going on and ranting about now.
So my argument, because I hear you, and I think you're right 99%, but I think that 1% for me is the fact that indies are becoming a bigger piece of the pie more and more as the years go on, where
100%.
You know, when we're talking about, you know, what is the average player playing on PlayStation or playing in general, or what are the games that we view as like the popular games of the last, let's say, decade, right? Games do come to mind like Rocket League, games come to mind like Cuphead, games come to mind like Hades. And again, like when we come back to the Hades example, we are talking about a game that didn't come out day and date on PlayStation, that could have come out day and date on PlayStation, but wouldn't have seen that return on PlayStation. And I wonder if it's the chicken and the egg thing of, if PlayStation did care and if PlayStation did put in the care, would it benefit all parties? Would it benefit PlayStation to have those sales of big games like Hades day and date, big games like, I know we had Fall Guys was a PS Plus game. We've had Rocket League as PS Plus games. Could we see way more of those come through and actually add to the platform and add to that bottom line in a way that's probably never going to match up to the AAAs and the big PlayStation first parties and Fortnite 30% and all that shit, but in a way that is, you know, beneficial to PlayStation, but also beneficial to us as the audience, because we are getting games like Hades, we are getting those indie games that do break into the mainstream status, right? We're getting a Cuphead show. We are seeing those games more and more, and then also benefits the developers as the people who are making these games and having to struggle through figuring out how to get their game on the PlayStation platform and actually make it discoverable and all these different things.
I think the thing, though, too, is to get more Hades, you also have to get more of stuff that totally flops that we never end up hearing about. And I don't know how much they're willing to run through that. Like, it's not just not that I don't think they should do it, because I am like super in support of indies and I like want them to have the world. But like realistically, from like a business standpoint, that stuff comes with risks. Like for every Hades that comes across, there's also like a bunch of other games that probably weren't nearly as good. And one thing that sticks out to me a lot, thinking about the idea of PlayStation setting the tone for the generation, is, you know, again, also from Rebecca's article, which is just fantastic. A lot of little gems in there. And one of the ones that stood up to me was her talking to Gardner and him saying, we were basically told that unless we had games that would push next gen, i.e. super pretty, then they weren't interested in providing promotion, even though like, one graph before that mentioned like, oh, a higher up thought the game was interesting. But once the process got rolling, it was sort of like, okay, it kind of boiled down to how is this going to be, marketable or impressive. And I think that's really interesting in this era, because we, even on this show, like we are often talking about how is it next gen enough? What does, is it taking advantage of like the PS5? And I think that does become so much murkier when it comes to like the indie space. And there's so many things here that are like sad and frustrating to me. And I don't know. I really hope that we see the changes that are needed. But the rough part is like the changes that are needed are so much more behind the scenes. Like, I would say the only thing that we can easily see without, digging in and doing like the investigative work that like Rebecca and so many other people are doing is stuff like the showcases and the how the page is orchestrated and stuff. And it is true, like, there's ID at Xbox, there's Nindies, there's that sizzle reel, right? PlayStation has that one sizzle reel, that one marquee game that's there, but it doesn't really, and it's funny too, because even on a personal level, like starting to play like a lot more on PlayStation, as like there's not a whole lot on Switch anyway, like I'm like, you know what, let me do load a higher on the store and see what kind of things I come across, because I do that on Nintendo all the time. And it did not really hit. Like it was hard to like dig through it. Like I struggled to find stuff that like I was interested in. And I wonder how much of that is that lack of games that are appearing on there, whether they're, newer games or older games or like up and coming games or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, my question to you guys was going to be, how often do you peruse the PlayStation Store? And is that as often as you peruse Xbox Game Pass and the eShop? Because for us, I think PlayStation is probably all of our core consoles. And I find myself, I rarely peruse the PlayStation Store. If I'm looking for PlayStation releases, it'll usually be online, and I do that week to week for the show. But I go through Xbox Game Pass all the time to see what's new there. I click through the eShop just to scroll and see like, all right, what the fuck is here?
It's
What's
interesting, right?
happening?
Yeah, so for PlayStation, it's rare. Occasion now that we don't have the drop every week, it's I go in there and do newest to see what got added. But how it'll be like, oh, here's a bunch of currency packs for Call of Duty. I'm like, fucking god, this is worthless, right? So super rare, if at all, right? Game Pass, I'm usually reading more about, but when I do boot up the Xbox and go in, I will tab around and see it. But then eShop, I find, is getting so similar, not the same, to the App Store, where since people can discount stuff, when you go in there to bestsellers, it's always stuff that's on a crazy ass discount. That's what's trending there or whatever, which is an interesting argument against like, well, will the cream rise to the top, or is it just people who are, cutting their games, slashing their game prices to get where it could be?
But yeah, like to bring back a bit from last week, right? I look at my Blessings Super Fun Game Release Calendar 2021.
Oh God.
I brought it up.
This thing again.
I brought it up just to see.
I'm trying to make Blessings Release Calendar fun, spectacular of 2021 happen. Bless.
It's gonna happen. I'm gonna make it a thing. It's a thing, everybody. I've updated on Twitter with the Game Pass things there. Even though hold on. Let me. I heard Death's Door isn't on Game Pass, and then I think Chris Tales is.
Here, while you do that and figure that out, ladies and gentlemen, I have something to say. All right, there's a very special kind of funny thing we're working on. All right, and I need to go do it. And I booked a car for it and everything, like an adult, because my wife needs our car or whatever, because she's pregnant. She's always got some excuse. But my car is here 20 minutes early. So, ladies and gentlemen, Blessing and Janet, I will leave the show in your capable hands. I was hoping to get you all the way to the Chicory review. Chicory, I'm five chapters in. I like it a lot. I'll get back to it.
Ooh, I gotta check the calendar.
You guys are super into it. So yeah, I gotta bounce. I'm sorry, everybody. I love you. I'll see you soon.
Love you too, Greg. We're gonna miss you. All right, so to continue, right?
Please don't leave me alone with Blessing's goddamn calendar.
You're alone with Blessing's Super Fun Game Release Calendar 2021.
I'm here with you. I'm here with you, Janet. And let me tell you, I'm all in for Blessing's Super Fun game calendar.
I bring it up because I look through and I think of what are the biggest game releases of the year, what are the biggest indie game releases of the year, and which ones aren't coming to PlayStation. And immediately, right, like it's like Boomerang X, I don't believe is coming to PlayStation. Death's Door is coming to PlayStation. The Ascent isn't coming to PlayStation. 12 Minutes not coming to PlayStation. And that's like 2/3 of the ones so far on my list, up until September. And stopping there, like already, I'm like, man, I feel like PlayStation is missing out on a lot here by not having even just these games. And of course, some of these are deals, some of these are Xbox Game Pass, but is that too big of a pie to be missing out on for PlayStation? I think that's where I'm coming from with a lot of this.
I feel like it is too big of a pie, but at the same time, like I can't really argue that's the financial aspect of it, because I just don't, one, I don't know, and then two, I don't want to say common sense because it sounds like, but
Like your business brand.
Yes, I would assume that they can get away with doing that, but for me as like a PlayStation fan and someone that wants to like see the platform do great and also like see it be a viable place for indies, it is a bummer to have. Like there are games that now I do like playing my indies on Switch because it is portable, so I'm not going to pretend like there isn't a part of me that might dip into an indie if it's on Switch, even if it's also on PlayStation. But to not have the option, it really does become like, you know, for me, my consoles end up having jobs throughout the generation at this point because I usually have all of them at this point, where it's like, okay, Switch was indie machine, and then it's like, who's going to be the AAA box? Is it PlayStation or is it Xbox? And I've like had different times with like different ones, and PlayStation often too for me is like the exclusive machine. It's like, okay, third party, it could go either way between Xbox and PlayStation depending on the year, but that's sort of the jobs I've given them, and it's interesting to see that PlayStation really is that role, you know, like they are those marquee AAA games, those like exclusive franchises, and they're not so much on like the indie front, and that is a bummer.
So I want to keep it going with PlayStation updates because I do have to attend the same kind of funny thing what we're doing with Greg, and so we got to get the show moving. But that's a good conversation. We're probably going to continue to have that conversation forever on PSLW because we love talking about these topics. But for now, let's talk about something very different. The PlayStation web version of My PlayStation being shut down. This is directly from the support website. They gave a couple of updates starting with My PlayStation. They're right here. As of June 28th, 2021, the web feature in My PlayStation will no longer be supported. You can continue to access your game library, parties, friends, trophies, profile information on your PS4 and PS5 consoles or via mobile on the PlayStation app. The profile and game library information will also be available via web on the profile menu dropdown. They also talk about how the PlayStation Vita messaging is also shutting down. As of June 28th, 2021, users on PS Vita will no longer be able to use the messaging service. Although messaging on PlayStation Vita is going away, your messages will still be available to you by using the messaging service on PS5 consoles, PS4 consoles, and via mobile on PlayStation app. The Vita thing I don't care about too much. The My PlayStation thing ticks me off just the littlest bit. I don't know if you've ever used My PlayStation on the web.
No one has, Blessing.
I
Besides
have.
you and 11 other people, no one uses the website. You
Bear, I think
dork.
you underestimate how convenient it is when somebody DMs you their PlayStation ID to copy and paste it onto the web version of My PlayStation. But it's very convenient. And also when you go on the website for you to just search up people or search up shit. It was super convenient. They've already shut it down. I've already felt the effects of it. Just yesterday, somebody was like, add me on PlayStation. I was like, bet. And I tried to put it in the thing. I've been personally victimized by the shutdown of My PlayStation.
You too may be entitled to financial compensation if you've been victimized by the shutdown. Yeah, I have not. I don't really use it. Funnily enough, I used the PS Vita messaging like a few months ago because I just got a Vita. I'm not joking. I got a Vita and I was like, let me get a screenshot off of here. And I was like, I'm just going to message it to like myself or someone to like use it. But it's fine. I mean, that was a short-lived time, and I haven't played it much since I got it, so you know that's fair. But that's Vita culture, right? Not really playing it as much as you should be.
Oh, 1000%. Have you at least played Persona 4 Golden?
No. So it's funny because someone on Twitter was like, "You got to play it. It's so good. I have a copy that I don't care about. Like, I'll send it to you." But they never sent it to me, so I didn't play it. I might still buy it because, like, why not? But so far, the only game that I've really dug into is, oh my gosh, I'm like blanking on it now. Sound Shapes.
Oh, Sound Shapes is good.
It's good. Yeah, really good. I had posted about it and people were like, that Beck world, it's so good. I haven't gotten to that one yet, but it's been a good time. Yeah. Fun.
Hell yeah. And then lastly, for PlayStation updates, PS Plus July has been announced. The games you're getting are A Plague Tale: Innocence for PS5, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 for PS4, and then WWE 2K Battlegrounds for PS4. And speaking of one of these, it's time for PlayStation picks. We're doing this early, and so I don't have a good list of games coming out this week because, of course, we're recording this on Friday. A lot of websites like Otaku and others don't update their out for this week lists until Sunday or Monday. But there is one game I do want to shout out, which is A Plague Tale: Innocence for PS5. That's coming out Tuesday, July 6th. I know plenty of people already know what Plague Tale: Innocence is. It was a big game when it came out that year. And I think it was like 2019 that it came out. Maybe it was 2018. But it was only a few years ago that it came out. The description goes like this: follow the grim tale of young Amicia and her little brother Hugo in a heart-wrenching tale, heart-rending. I'm not heard that term. Heart-rending journey through the darkest hours of history. Hunted by Inquisition soldiers and surrounded by unstoppable swarms of rats, Amicia and Hugo will come to know and trust each other. As they struggle to survive against overwhelming odds, they'll fight to find purpose in this brutal, unforgiving world. Janet, did you ever check out Plague Tale Innocence?
No, but I'm finally going to. This is like the perfect timing for me because I just saw my boyfriend had started on Game Pass, and then this got announced. So he's like, I'm just gonna go play it on there. Then if I end up continuing with it, but everyone I know, this is one of those like kind of not so low key sleeper hits. Like I feel like it is a fairly known game, and obviously it's getting like this inclusion, so it has some level of clout. But it's the game that like a lot of people skipped over, including myself. But everyone I know that played it like has nothing but good things to say about it. So I'm excited to finally dig into it. What about you?
I played quite a bit of it. I got about halfway and then I stopped playing. I think I got a little bit bored of it, but it was good for what I played of it. Like I like it's a game that I was surprised to see take a lot of inspiration from The Last of Us. Mechanically, it has a lot of Last of Us elements too, and that goes even beyond just the companion aspect of it, because you play as Amicia, you have Hugo as your little brother companion that you're hanging out with and doing all this stuff. But then you get into the stealth stuff, you get into some of the puzzle solving, and there's big Naughty Dog energy to it, which I really dug. And then the story seems interesting. I had one of my friends actually spoil the rest of it because I had decided that I probably wasn't going to play the rest. And the game goes places. The game goes places that I was not expecting. And so I'd say if you're looking for a good narrative game, if you're looking for a game that, you know, is kind of actiony but has a lot of stealth elements to it, I'll say give it a shot. I love that the PS5 version is the version that's available through PS Plus, and so that's a deal right there. And I would love to see how this game runs on PS5 because it was a beautiful game on PS4, and so look forward to that one. Janet, it is time. Our Chicory review. I don't know if I should text Greg Miller, maybe have him call in from the Uber, because I know he has things to say about it. But I guess I'll start with you. Like, you're the one who originally put us on to Chicory during PlayStation PS I Love You XOXO a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
You liked it. You've now beaten it. Where are you at with Chicory?
Y'all, also, I worked so hard for this moment right here because I'm like, I want to beat this before this episode, and I was playing super slowly and also playing pretty thoroughly. I am going for the platinum, by the way. And I think I'm sitting at like 50+% of the trophies. So I'm working on that. I loved it. It was, and you know, I know people are gonna say recency bias, you know, blah blah, but I think it's one of the best games I've played in recent history. I immediately put it on my top 100 games list, which is granted a work in progress. I don't even have 100 games on that list yet, but I'm like, this is just, it just hits. It astounded me. It got very emotional at some points. It was constantly like, oh god, it was just so magical and surprising and playful and heartfelt. Like, it just hits every level because it's well written. The adventure itself is fun. It unlocks some creativity because you do have that coloring aspect. You get things like art prompts, and the more you dig into it, the more it rewards you. And I know it's kind of a cliche thing to say, but very few games really do follow through on that. Like, side quests will lead to, you know, you'll do a side quest for someone and then they'll give you a tool that will reveal information on your map, or they'll give you like an item that you need, or they'll give you I just did one side quest that gave me new filters for the photo mode in the game. And it's stuff like that that's happening all the time. And it has so many like little cute extra things. There's like a cajillion genres thrown into this. Like, it's adventure game, then it's Metroidvania, then it's like an art sim, then it's also like Animal Crossing because you can put furniture down. Like, it just, other games get pulled in that I don't want to mention because, you know, spoilers or whatever for different powers you get and stuff. But yeah, I just absolutely adored it. I was stunned. Also, shout out to Natalie and Rebecca, who were speaking this game's praises, and they, you know, I love their criticism. So when they were hot on it, I was like, okay, I was already in. Now I feel like it might hit. This is currently my game of the year, and I don't really see anything topping it, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah, I absolutely adored this game as well. Like, I didn't know much of what to expect jumping in. I think I mentioned last week that I did beat the game. But like jumping in, right? Like I'd originally seen Shuhei Yoshida tweeting about it for PlayStation Indies, and I was always like, okay, this seems like it has a cute, fun art style to it. And then I had similarly seen Rebecca Valentine and Natalie and other folks tweeting about it. And once I saw that high praise, and once I heard you talk about it, I was like, okay, I gotta definitely check this out. Like, this seems like one to really play, because, you know, the one thing mainly pulling me in was knowing that the soundtrack was being done by Lena Raine, and I absolutely love Lena Raine's work, especially from Celeste, which has one of my favorite soundtracks ever. And this soundtrack for me really invokes a lot of the same elements that I loved about Celeste soundtrack. But overall, like, stylistically, I think this game really hits for me. Narratively, the game really hits for me. Gameplay wise, the game really hits for me. Like it hits in pretty much every single way that I want it to hit. In terms of one, from the game setup and the kind of game it is, I would very much describe it as a Zelda-like, like an old school top-down Zelda game where you're going from screen to screen. You're doing different dungeon-like areas. You are doing a lot of puzzle solving, but the game doesn't really have combat. Like there are like a few combat sequences. Like there's a few boss fights, but overall, the game doesn't have combat. And despite that, the game really finds ways to be. I think even in spite of that, the game finds ways to be creative with its gameplay and be creative with its puzzle solving and be creative moment to moment in ways that delighted me while playing it. The fact that the main core mechanic of the game is painting and coloring things in. At first, to me, I was like, all right, let's see how this goes. Like this might get old, especially playing on controller. And that is like one of my few critiques of the game is that I think the game is probably way better played on mouse and keyboard than on an actual controller because I'd never felt as efficient as I wanted to be playing it on the DualSense. That said, as a mechanic for both expression and then for both gameplay, I think it is such a genius idea the way that the painting stuff is implemented because it goes from being purely paint for fun, paint to color in, paint because that is your character's role in the world because you I don't want to get too much into the story because I definitely want people to experience it fresh, but you play as this character who is adopting this role, which is to be the person that brings color to the world. And that becomes the main driver for why you want to color things in the world, but then that then evolves mechanically in a way that starts to make sense to why you would do that in gameplay. And that's the thing that I really liked because I like painting fine. I don't consider myself artistic in that way per se that much. Like I'm not a great visual artist. But the more they gave me reason to do that, by doing like the Zelda-like or Metroidvania-like things of here are new abilities, here are new things that painting does to the world. Here's this, and this. That started to make me stop more and be like, cool, I do want to paint in these screens. I do want to find the different stamps. I do want to figure out like the smartest way to paint this room so that it allows me to do what I need to do, or even it allows me to hang out for a while and chill for a second before I do the next thing. Like the way that the creative portions of the game would come through every now and then to really add to the actual core gameplay of puzzle solving and stuff. I thought that was really cool, really well done, and really impressive. And then, God, the art style, so good. Because at first it's pretty plain of like black and white. I get what the coloring book. I get what this is, but in actual execution, art style, fucking phenomenal. And then also the story is just so good.
Yeah, and it blows my mind just like how much they did with this game. It had so many layers that I just was not expecting with like pulling in from different genres or taking different inspirations. I've mentioned before, like on previous episodes, a very, you mentioned the Zelda comparison, a very clear comparison point would be Link's Awakening, especially with you have a phone booth that you can call home. Like it's literally 1-to-1. But as someone that actually didn't like Link's Awakening, I still love this because it doesn't have the same like complexity of steps. Like I think the exploration is like pretty natural. It's pretty difficult to like get lost in, and if you do, you do have that phone call mechanic that can redirect you to where you need to go.
Definitely gets into like point and click adventure territory with some of its like puzzle, like overworld puzzles and shit.
Yeah. I think the thing about Link's Awakening is it sort of like domino affects a lot of its problem solving in a way that I find thoroughly annoying, where it's like talk to this owl and then to get an apple, but then cut the apple in half by the way. I'm like, yo, and then the frame rate was
find
dipping.
a fisherman who's on the secret screen that you have to like find this like obscure location. Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Exactly. So it feels much less obtuse than that, and I think the thing that I really appreciate about it is how much it committed to having through lines for both its narrative and its mechanics, which I think is just incredibly impressive. One small example being, without, again, I think both me and you don't want to give too much away because it's best like when you're surprised by the stuff. But one common like mini game, if you want to call it that, is that you can go to like a little art school and they'll give you like prompts for paintings. and then those paintings later you can see them like around the world or in the museum. So what I like about it is it feels like actually meaningful when you do stuff. Like you'll design something and you see it in the world, or like you have these different like through lines of things.
Bear's showing one of my
drawing?
paintings. That's my drawing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Every now and then in the narrative, they'll ask you to draw a certain character or draw a certain thing. And so this is actually me. This is actually my self-portrait of my own character. And Janet says it's good. I'll go ahead and say that no, it's not.
I
It's not good at all.
think it's pretty good. I think it's solid.
It's solid. You can tell that you tried, and I think that's.
I want to
what's
see
important.
Janice. Janice is going to be way better than mine.
I don't have my self-portrait, but I have other portraits I did from reference photos that I had sent Barrett. I sent Barrett like the super janky ones I sent you, where I just took a picture of my screen.
See,
but yeah,
like, this is Janice. This is great.
Yes, like that's
really
Chicory.
This is
really
Thank
good.
you. Right?
Go to mine.
Okay.
You should have shown mine first, because mine. If you didn't see Janice, if you see mine first, you'd be like, "Oh, this is good," and then you see Janice, you're like, "Oh, this is good."
I was straight up snapping in this game. I was going hard, like pro gamer content right here.
No wonder.
Y'all, like
you to beat this game.
I forgot how long it took me to beat it. I think like 20 plus hours to beat it. And then I put in a couple extra hours last night after rolling credits to work on getting the trophies out, which a lot of the trophies that I'm missing are just like side quests or collectible based. That's pretty much all the trophies in the game, besides progression ones, are based on that. There's not too many funky ones of like, I was worried that like sit on every bench or something would be one, like some really obscure stuff, but it's all pretty naturally integrated into the gameplay. And again, without spoiling too much, I was shocked that when you go back and play after you roll credits, like it does still feel fresh because there's new dialogue. Like people do react to the fact that like you have rolled credits and they talk about it, and it does kind of somewhat change things. Nothing too dramatic where I feel like you gotta, see it all the way through. But I was pleasantly surprised by like how rare it is for them to recycle dialogue. Like there are a few characters that do recycle dialogue a lot, but for the most part, like the people that are in houses and stuff, they always have something new to say. Some of them are giving you information. Like this game's just really, really freaking brilliant. Really quick, one of my comparison points. Go ahead.
Oh, I want to shout out 2 things. Because Barrett brought it up earlier. Can you bring up the image I drew? Yeah, so this is the image I drew of Chicory. And again, compared to Janet's, doesn't look that great. But out of context, but looks amazing.
Yeah, not that bad. I would say that you might have started off a little too big, but that's about it.
I did, because I started off with the head, and then that's why I had to kind of stop there. Yeah. And somebody on Twitter, I tweeted this one out, and somebody on Twitter pointed out that it looks like I drew a bee with weird legs, and I can't unsee it.
Oh my god, it totally does.
Yeah, I can't unsee it, and so there you go. My odd bee drawing that I did in the game.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or like a bee with like a really big head, like the head of Chicory, but the wings but they're like weird butt wings. So yeah, but I like that you can kind of do your own thing with it. As much as it pains me that some people probably will play this game and sort of beam through it and maybe not try the drawings, because you don't need to like make them look a certain way. You just got to put something on the canvas. I think it's more fun when you really dig into all that. And the thing I want to shout out really quick too, for people that, especially people that play a lot of indies, this game feels like a short hike. If a short hike was a lot longer and deeper, which is incredibly impressive, because The Short Hike is another one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it's brilliant. But when I got to the end, I'm like, I just wanted more. Like it was phenomenal, but I just wanted more because I wanted to stay in the world. Like Chicory lets you do that. Like I straight up, what is it called? Picnic is the world, right? The world's called Picnic, I think.
The entire world.
I live in Picnic. Like I'm there. I am the wielder. Like this is my community.
That's the thing I wanted to shout out, is this is a game that feels content rich in a way that I was not expecting. I thought I was going to jump into this game and beat it after 6 hours. I mainlined it for the most part. I did quite a few side things. I've spent maybe 20% of my playtime doing side stuff, but for the most part, I was mainlining, and it took me 10 hours, which I was pretty impressed by. But then also I felt like there was still endless amounts of things that I could go back to. Like you said, once you go back into the world, there's new dialogue, there's new things you can do, and there are so many characters that feel like they're not just characters in the game. There are characters that you talk to and they add in new mechanics, or they introduce new mechanics, introduce new things, introduce new collectibles for you to find. And it's a world that feels super full in a way that I was not expecting, and I was very impressed by. And it does feel like a world that you can live in and hang out in, because again, you have the option too, if you want to, like go by and go screen by screen and color it in. The game basically the map doubles as a map and a literal coloring book. And that is a super impressive thing. It adds so much, not just playtime, but so much, I guess, activity for you to do if you want to do it. That's there that you don't have to do, but you can if you want to, which is really cool.
Yeah, like the NPCs are all written out like incredibly well. I guess thinking of, criticisms, like things I do have like beef with in the game, not too many. Again, being able to wear glasses and a hat at the same time, forever a beef.
Yep.
But for more serious ones, I think as far as controlling, because a lot of people have asked me about that, I feel like it is better than you think it would be. I won't necessarily fight you too much on it'd probably be better on PC, because I imagine it would be, just because you have like
Mouse and keyboard.
separate from the keyboard.
I think most ideally I would want to play this game on some kind of drawing pad. Like, I feel like that would, if
my God, I think about this game playing on iPad all the time. I'm like,
Yep,
oh, bro,
Switch.
give me the Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil, I would be just like straight up making masterpieces. Like, it would be awesome. The only thing with Switch, I think that, and this is like to the DualSense's credit and PlayStation's credit for how it works together, my only issue with Switch is I feel like it wouldn't be as good docked because of so let me get into like, I guess, a little bit of the mechanics. Like, you can, like use your paint with like L2 basically, and then you can erase with R2, and that's, can change colors with other buttons. But the big thing is like you can control with like the right analog stick, I think, controls like where your brush moves. Or you can use the touchpad. My beef with the touchpad for most of my painting is when I first make contact with the touchpad, it kind of drops the brush in somewhere random for me. And once I get like, a hold of it, it's totally fine and actually pretty precise. But because it starts off kind of wonky, I only use the touchpad for the boss battles. And for maybe like, that's basically it. And you get, the good thing is you do get some tools like in terms of brush patterns that make it easier for you to have more precise or more organized painting, which helps a lot. So my biggest complaint is still not like, it wasn't that deep for me gameplay wise, but I think especially when you first start out, it feels like, okay, well, this seems like it's going to be kind of like sloppy to paint with, but it kind of gets progressively better. And then the other beef I have, and Blessing, I want to know what you thought about this, because maybe I'm just bad at it. I felt like sometimes the depth perception for making some of the like movements, like for going from one spot to the other, I had a hard time.
Oh, yes. For jumping.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. Yes. That was a problem for me.
I wasn't going to say it because I didn't want like people to know that you could jump. It's like, I mean, it's a mechanical thing you get later. But yeah, now it's out that you can jump at some point.
You get that early on, I think.
I was falling. Well, it depends on how slow you play. I got it like 10 hours in. But that's not like the biggest spoiler in the world. But for some of the platforming, I was like, this would be good if I knew more about
1000%.
Where to go.
I think a lot of the puzzle solving stuff of the dungeony, hey, here's a new mechanic, and you're going to have to use this mechanic to get to the end of this portion of the game. A lot of that stuff is designed super well. Like, I love a lot of that stuff because a lot of the times the game is super smart about how they're using paint for that stuff and how they're feeding that back into the core mechanic of just painting. But yeah, like jumping is one of the ones, and like the depth perception stuff is can get really confusing when you are like, cool, I'm shifting this far into the level, but I can't tell if I can't tell if I am higher than a certain place or if I'm lower than a certain place, because the game being this 2D coloring book thing doesn't give you much to go with in terms of that. And so I'm right there with you. Not the biggest problem, but definitely one that's there to cite. For me, an issue that not an issue. One thing that I didn't love was actually the boss battles. I thought the boss battles.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, boss battles are one of the ones where in terms of what they add to the story and what they add to the theme, I think a lot of that stuff is amazing. But in the actual practice of what the boss battles entail, a lot of the boss battles involve you painting over the enemy and like going back and forth with the paint over the enemy. And when you're doing that and trying to dodge at the same time, I think they were going for the, hey, we'll make the player rub their tummy and pat their head at the same time. I think they're going for that kind of thing. But in practice, I don't think it was as fun. And I think a lot of the boss battles handled it better than others, but none of the boss battles had me like, oh, that was a fucking dope ass fight.
Yeah,
in terms of mechanics, in terms of theming and music and all the other shit, I think that stuff was really good. But mechanically, I don't think it's shown.
I might even go as far as to say they might be actively in some ways bad. Like, I still love the game. It's still my game of the year. It's still, I can't recommend it enough. But yeah, it's difficult because I can tell, from like a design ethos perspective, it's very clear that they don't want the boss battles to be something that's too difficult, even though I did die a lot, but you just kind of immediately respawn. You don't get penalized at all. You just keep like you don't have to restart the battle. You just kind of can keep going through.
Yeah.
There's even an option in the settings to skip all the boss battles. So that's there. I don't recommend doing that though, if you just for like narrative and vibe purposes, because the music is great. The boss battles are a visual feast, but they are mechanically, they're boring at best or drag out at worst. I do feel like some of those later battles, I'm like, especially because there's no like health bar on the enemy, I'm like, bro, are we done? Like, are we still going? Like, and then sometimes too, I even had some instances where I'm like, is this really doing damage? Like, laser shield? So I guess not. What do I do during this time? Do I wait? Like, they did feel like they were the lower parts. The only good thing I liked about them was that since they were pretty chill, I'm like, okay, I'll just do this and then I'll keep going. But they definitely weren't like good.
There was never a time I was looking forward to a boss battle in this game. Like that is, I think that was basically where that comes down for me. And I wish they actually didn't do the boss battles. I wish they would have kept the same thematic elements and the story elements of those boss battles, because there are some really cool moments in those boss battles. I wish they would have done those differently. I wish they would have either done those through a cutscene or done those through thematic, like, hey, let's walk the player through some sort of sequence that isn't a boss battle but is a set piece that is meant to convey the exact same thing, because the rest of the game doesn't have combat. And I think that is a really cool thing about the game, the fact that you're like, there's no violence really, there's no combat. The only combat that exists are in the boss battles. And I think that would have driven home the fact that, hey, this is a game that is a feel good game. It is cozy. It is, the vibes are there. You're doing a lot of coloring book stuff, and it is a non-stressful game for the most part. I think removing the boss battles entirely would have really driven that home and made it an overall better game, even though the game is incredible. I do think I'm with you that I wouldn't say this game is my game of the year, but it's in my top 5 for sure. Like, it is in my top games of the year. I absolutely really adore this game, and I think the way that it comes together reminds me of some of my favorite indie games of the last generation. It reminds me of Celeste a little bit. It reminds me about some of the things I even love about Undertale, which I would say is one of my favorite games ever. It has some of those elements as well. And the writing, the story, the themes of the story that I'm not going to get into for sake of people going into it fresh. I think all that stuff hits so well, and it is so meaningful, and it is so relatable. And it is hard for me to think of somebody playing through this game and not getting some sort of value out of the story that's being told, and how that will relate back into real life and not this fun animal picnic world.
I love the animal picnic world, but this is definitely like a game that I recommend to everybody, regardless of your genre preference. I think if you like games, and especially if you like games enough that you're out here listening to this show because you can obviously consume gaming content, then you absolutely should be playing this, because it's so rare to see a game so clearly take inspirations from a lot of iconic titles, both in the indie and AAA space, while also feeling very additive and very fresh. I think that's probably the biggest compliment I can give to it. It doesn't feel like I'm rehashing old stuff, even though clearly this is built on like the history of brilliant game design that came before. It still feels just so unique and special. But yeah, I loved it. It's fantastic. Go play it.
Yeah. The original title of this podcast was going to be the best PlayStation game of 2021 that you're not playing. And I think that's a very good way to put it. It's one of the best games that you should be playing that's available on the platform right now this year. And so go check out Chicory. That has been your PS I Love You Chicory review. And that has been your PS I Love You XOXO. Before we wrap up though, Janet, where can people find you?
You can find me across the internet under the handle GameOnysus. That's Game ONYSUS, which includes most notably Twitter and Twitch. In Twitch, every Friday I do Best of 2021 Watch, where I'm playing like the latest and greatest games. So I did play Chicory on there. So I would say if you ever want to see what's going on with a recent release, you can check out that stream live or the VOD.
Hell yeah. Remember, this has been PS I Love You XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week, we get together to talk about the hottest topics in PlayStation. We've got a Patreon post show for those that are subbed at the silver level of patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So stick around for that. Otherwise, till next time, peace out.